I call this meeting to order of the Santa Fe County Planning Commission on Thursday, November 21st, 2019. Call to order. Roll call.
Charlie Gonzalez,
Present.
Frank Katz,
Here.
JJ Gonzalez,
Here.
Amory Lopez,
Here.
Susan Martin, Fred Resnick,
Here.
Steve Shepherd.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of agenda. Any amendments?
Mr. Chair, there are no amendments to the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chair, I abstained, I wasn't here for the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And,
That's the
Okay,
agenda.
the agenda, no, just a minute, sorry.
okay, approval of the minutes of October 17, 2019.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
on page 19, about halfway down, Commissioner Rasnick, it says, "You may a comment." I believe the word should be "you made," M-A-D-E. It's the eighth recognition on page 19. Second word.
Okay, anything else?
Move that the minutes be approved as corrected.
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, let's go to the new business. Case number 19-5240, Dollar General Appeal. I just wanna set some rules here, first of all. I'm gonna go for 3 minutes to speak, and there's no giving your time to anybody else. It's each individual for their own time. With that said, Mr. Manzanares, please present your case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Issue, Edgar Katnack appellant requests an appeal of the Santa Fe County Land Use Administrator's decision to approve development permit 19-541, the Dollar General Store in El Dorado. The site is within the US 285 South Highway corridor, located at 5 Camino Valle. On July 19th, 2019, Pedigo Construction LLC applicant, Joseph Carnes agent, submitted a proposed site development plan and development permit application, permit 19-541, requesting to construct an approximate 9,100 square foot retail store, the Dollar General store, on a 2.53 acre site. The site is within the Cimarron Village Plan Development District. The amended Cimarron Village Master Plan designated this lot as part of Phase 1 and classified the lot as a commercial lot, listing retail sales and services up to 50,000 square feet as a permitted use. Therefore, this application was reviewed administratively and did not require a public hearing for approval. On October 18th, 2019, the Land Use Administrator approved development permit application 19-541 with conditions based on the application meeting all applicable standards of the Sustainable Land Development Code and being in compliance with the applicable state fire utility and transportation regulations as approved by development order dated October 18th, 2019, Exhibit 4 in your packet. On October 25th, 2019, Mr. Edgar Katnack submitted an appeal requesting that the Land Use Administrator's decision to approve development permit number 19-541 be reversed. Chapter 4.5.2 states an aggravated person withstanding may appeal the decision of the Land Use Administrator to approve, deny, or approve with conditions an application to the Planning Commission within 5 days of the decision being made. The
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
I think you said aggravated, and the word is aggrieved.
Agreed, apologize. The application being appealed was reviewed for compliance with the applicable standards set forth in the SLDC as follows. Chapter 4.5.2, appeals of an administrative decision. Chapter 7, the Sustainable Design Standards. Standards which included access, fire protection, landscaping buffering, setbacks, lighting, parking, utilities, terrain management, and traffic impact analysis. Chapter 8 for plan development and zoning districts, and Chapter 9.10 which regulates the US 285 corridor design standards. Staff has determined that the development permit 19541 meets all applicable requirements and design standards set forth in the SLDC and complies with the previously approved master plan. The area has the right to be developed in accordance with the previously approved master plan by the BCC for Chapter 8.10.10.2 of the SLDC. State and other county review agencies have reviewed the project in detail for compliance with applicable state, fire, utility, and transportation regulations and support the approval of the project. The appellant has not provided any information that states the application does not comply with the SLDC. Therefore, there is no grounds to justify a reversal of the land use administrator's decision to approve development permit 19541. In conclusion, staff recommends that the planning commission uphold the Santa Fe County land use administrator's decision to approve development permit 19-41, subject to the approval conditions referenced in the development order received for permit 19-541, Exhibit 4. Mr. Chair, I now stand for any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Does the commission have any questions of Nathan or staff?
Yes, I do.
Russ?
Is there ever discussion about having any sort of a informational hearing or presentation to the 285 community? I ask that because I've become aware that there is a petition that has been presented to the county, and that I don't know if the newest numbers have been presented, but supposedly some 600 to 800 people have signed a petition. And I'm wondering why there was no attempt to communicate with the corridor concerning this application versus having this all happening tonight based on notices on the highway.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Raznik, the applicant did do a pre-application neighborhood meeting, pre-application meeting with staff and also a technical advisory committee meeting with staff prior to submittal. At the technical advisory committee meeting, it was determined that the project was below the threshold required to have a community meeting. And through previous approvals of the master plan, the use was a permitted use and could be done administratively.
Okay, anything else?
I had a question.
JJ?
I read in that this commercial lot was approved in like 2007 or 2008. And it mentioned that people at the time could have had comments on that approval of that commercial lot. But I think many of these people were not aware of what was going on in 2008 or 2009. And all of a sudden in 2019, this kind of appears. And I wonder, how could this commercial lot be dormant for like 10 years and then all of a sudden come back to life? I thought maybe these approvals would be granted like 5 years, a master plan approval granted 5 years, and then they had to periodically reapply to keep their approvals in place. I had that question. I wonder, if these people were aware, any of these people were aware of things like that. It seems that it caught them by surprise.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, development did take place within the Cimarron Village within the 5-year time period, so the master plan was still valid. As far as it not being developed for a number of time, there could have been a number of factors, economic factors, things like that. But it was done through a master plan process, and therefore it was turned into a PD when the SLDC was adopted in 2016, saving those master plan approvals, and thus making it a permitted use and an administrative application in 2019.
And in this area, the Cimarron Village, is there only one commercial lot which we talk about today? Is that the only commercial lot, or there are other commercial lots along the highway?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, if you look at exhibit 3, that is the approved master plan for the Cimarron Village, there is some other mixed use phases and commercial lots designated in this area. Phase 1 is gonna be the first commercial lot which the Dollar General is going on. There's also commercial development proposed on phase. Phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and potentially phase 6.
Oh, I see. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, Frank.
Yeah, so this is, what we're looking at is what is the master plan, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Katz, we are looking at the approved amended master plan for Cimarron Village that is now used to regulate the PD, known as Cimarron Village PD. If you look to the right-hand corner, it has use lists for each area and each phase. Retail sales and services up to 50,000 square feet is highlighted, and so is phase 1, which is highlighted. These uses are permitted within that development.
What has been built in this development?
Mr. Chair, Commission Member Katz, there, the 3 lots adjacent to this commercial lot, those are residential lots, and I believe that there are at least 1 or 2 residences out there now. There is also a gas station and convenience store that's on this, within this master planned area.
That has been built.
That's been built, it's been in existence, yeah, for several years.
Can you run us through if nothing had been done, when would the master plan expire?
Let me check the dates. So they came in for the amended master plan.
It's sort of a matter of code, I think, and I don't know what the code says. If you get a master plan, it does expire at some point, doesn't it?
It expires after 5 years, but every time you this is under the old codes.
Yeah.
Every time you would come in for a phase of the development, a development plan, then it would automatically extend the master plan for an additional 2-year period. And so in addition to the gas station and convenience store that's there, there's also storage units that have been built within that development as well.
So those have all extended.
Yes.
Thank you, that's very helpful, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Frank. I have a question too. Does staff aware of any other projects that are in the same situation throughout the county? Is there a few of them like in the same situation?
Mr. Chair, you mean that are designated
Yes.
planned development districts at
Yes.
this point that haven't been developed? Let me go back and look at our.
Just more or less, I'm just curious if.
Mr. Chair, I think there's approximately 16 to 17 planned development districts within the county. Each go off of their approved master plan and approved use lists. Some are within community districts, but they are still regulated by their previous approvals through their master plan.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a point of clarification, this master plan that borders 285 on the east side of the road stretches for approximately 1 mile. The gas station was put in over a decade ago, and the storage units, which were previously a hardware store, and before that, a pizza shop, were put in maybe 5 years ago. So this is covers quite a bit of an area. If you go better known on the west side of 285, Avenida Amistad, which is the first traffic signal, all the way to Avenida El Dorado, which is the second traffic signal.
Okay, thank you.
One other question, when did staff become aware that there was considerable concern in the community? I mean, we've seen the number of petitions signed and such. When did staff become aware that there was this community concern?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Katz, there were 2 postings that were done for this project. It's a requirement of the SLDC for non-residential development. A upon the first posting, which is, let me get the date for you. That was done on September 2019. There was some concern from the public that the posting was not sufficient, therefore the applicant did a second posting on September 24th, 2019. Which totaled a total of 33 days of public notice for the development. At that point, staff was contacted and members of the public came in to request to view the file.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Any other questions?
Just a point, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. The posting was on Highway 285 where the traffic limit is about 55 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour. It was attached to a one of the highway signs. It was up, then it was down, and then reposted. So it took quite a bit of time, I think, for the public to understand that something was going on. It wasn't typical on a slow driving road. In fact, there have been several accidents on Highway 285, fatal accidents. And so, yes, the posting was there, I saw it, it was down, it was reposted. But I guess under the county regs, it met the requirements.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Resnick, if you go to Exhibit 8, there was also a public notice that was done in the front of the property off of Camino Valle. That was done during the initial and second posting. So there was a total of 2 boards, not just the one. There was one off of 285 and one off of Camino Valle as well.
Was the posting facing 285 or was that posting facing the homes that are on Camino Valle?
They were on, it was facing Camino Valle.
Camino Valle is opposite Avenida Amistad.
Okay, or any other questions? Okay, the appellant is present.
Yes.
Are you gonna make us a presentation?
Yeah.
Please come forward.
Sit anywhere here?
Sure.
Before you speak, can I swear you in? Yes. Raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give us? Yes. Please state your name for the record.
Catherine Catman. Okay, well, first I wanna thank you guys for the work you guys do for the county. Yes, my wife and I are the ones who filed the appeal, in regards to the Dollar General for a lot of reasons. We submitted a letter with our appeal. Hopefully some of you got a chance to review it. We also submitted 450 signatures on an appeal on our petition. And I brought in 800 today, right now as well, to submit to the county and to you guys for the file for the record. One for Nathan, I have the original ones right here, and you can pass those as well. Now, we filed our appeal for a lot of reasons, and a few of them we didn't put in to our letter, but one was, appraisal values we're concerned with in our general area going down further. We live next to Joe Miller. I've known him for 30 years. We've been living on Camino Valle for 30 years. And he put 2 double wides next to our property, and we have a couple of custom adobe homes there. And, we didn't say anything or do anything about it. But, once this was proposed, we were very concerned because we know the kind of traffic that it's gonna bring in, and, we know the type of store that this is. And if it would have been an organic marketplace, I wouldn't be here. But it's a type of store that we see as somewhat predatory for communities. And if any of you have done any research on the sheer number of them, not only in the state but across the country, you'll kind of have an idea. Now, so there's 1,200 signatures that we submitted, and there's a lot more still coming in. I didn't get to go pick up the remainder, but a lot of people seem very surprised and not informed about this, and that was a big concern of ours, you know? So we felt that a better way to get the word out would have been more appropriate. So anyhow, I wanted to just go over the first part because there's other people that will address more about it, but one aspect that I'm gonna just kind of read it a little bit in regards. And it's the Dollar General's application addresses individual requirements of the Sustainable Land Development Code, such as traffic, environment, and water, etc. But we are concerned they have been prepared and evaluated with minimal consideration of how all of these individual elements combined will impact the Cimarron Village Master Plan and those who live along this corridor. The Dollar General is in phase 1 of the Cimarron Village Master Plan, and this is a very different business from any which were discussed in prior public meetings with Joe and his group. And his plan for Cimarron Village to our community has painted a very different picture of what the development would be. He spoke of organic food markets, memory care, and assisted living facilities and affordable housing. And in a newspaper article from this time frame, he stated that they did not want a dollar store. I have a piece from that I can submit to the record with that article from the New Mexican in 2016. Now, this is a significant change from the residents' prior expectations, which may impact the type of businesses in the future phases of Joe Miller's and also change the whole intent of the current master plan. We respectfully request that the county require an analysis of the impact of the Dollar General in the context not only to the current Cimarron Village Master Plan, but also the existing businesses and the surrounding community. This is gonna affect, 8 to 10,000 people in our area. And it was interesting that, the mail out that we were required to mail was a dozen people to inform them of this. And so, we just feel that better informed would have been, and a greater hearing would have been more appropriate. Plus, an environmental impact should have been required. Instead, it fell under the 10,000 threshold of the square footage, so they weren't required. In our area, in our 30 years, we've seen a lot of wildlife come through there. Just recently, we've seen bobcats in our area. I've never seen one in 30 years out there. We've seen some of the pygmy or the wild pigs recently as well this year. And there's roadrunners, there's deer that come off the mountain. There's a lot of wildlife that come down into that area. And this business proposal site is right on a steep slope, and we've seen some severe torrential rains. In the last 5 years, they were saying, the 100-year flood. We've seen 2 of them in the last 10 years that made our whole road awash all the way to 285, with the waters coming across the freeway, and where it just wipes out the whole road and washes our whole lower part of our property. We just feel that there should have been better studies for the whole, layout, and it just doesn't seem sufficient. And so that's the general, purpose why my wife and I are here. And we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Now, we know that there are a few others that we requested to speak with us on the 285 all group, and I think that they were gonna.
Okay, does the commission have any questions?
Mr. Chair, you submitted for the record a copy of an article?
Yes, this article was in the 2000, the date is March 19, 2016.
Is it okay if I look at that?
Sure.
Yes, I'd like to look at it also. Mr. Chair, are you referring to the meeting that was held that was then commonly known at the country store?
Well, we had one
The
last year
series.
in July, and my wife and I were out of town up in Montana for that meeting, so we did not attend, but we encouraged communications with our friends and neighbors who informed us, and nothing was mentioned of a Dollar General store ban or this type of business. And if it would have been brought up then, I'm sure he would have had concerns from citizens at that point, but apparently he was holding off wisely, I'm sure. But yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Steve.
with respect to the submission, you picked out a couple of paragraphs within a larger article, right?
You know, I think it was a larger article, but that was right off of the top in the first couple of paragraphs.
Cause I'm not clear what the context is without seeing
Yeah.
the whole article.
Yeah, it'll be brought in here with some more information.
Somebody else has it?
Yeah.
Okay.
May I?
Mr. Chair,
I had a question for Mr. Katnack. You mentioned that you live on Camino Valle.
Correct.
Now that's right at the intersection,
Yes.
and this commercial lot is right at the first lot.
Yes, it's 4 lots from where we live.
Okay, and you live towards the back, is that it?
Yes.
So and how many, you've been there for 30 years?
Yeah.
And who did you buy your lots from?
Well, my Aunt Minna had got it originally in the early 70s, and we bought it from my Aunt Minna, and she bought it from when it was first split up from the Alva Simpson group when they were doing that whole reorganizing of that corridor. So it's, you know, pretty much been in the family since it was created as a lot.
That was back in the 70s, before they had the general
Correct.
county plan, so it was
Yes.
regulated development in those days. You just could buy a lot from somebody and you've lived there, it's been in your family for over 30 or 40 years?
Over 40.
It's prior to 1980, that
Oh,
was,
yeah, correct.
oh yeah, yeah, you've lived there for 30 years?
Yeah.
And you built your own houses in that
Me
area?
and my brother, we started when we were young, and you know, we have a place in town, but it's a townhouse and off of Airport Road, or well, across from the road to be honest, but it's been expanding, and you're you know, it was tight living in county, it was more fitting for us when
So are you on the eastern boundary of Cimarron Village, or towards the east?
yes,
You go through Cimarron Village, that via road to get to your place.
well, I mean, when you get off 285, up the corridor there.
Yeah.
We're at that first entrance.
The stoplight
where
there.
it splits off to Avenida Amistad and Camino Valle. And so, but we drive down that corridor all the time to go to the Agora supermarket and to the gas station and to the, you know, to the different businesses out there. And, you know, our concern is, you know, with the master plan that Joe has put in, he has a lot of commercial lots available, and we know that he bought the one right across the street from his proposed Dollar General, and he's been given permission for up to 12 to 14 different business types, including fast food restaurant. And, you know, we're scratching our head, but we're going, okay, well, we don't wanna say there goes the neighborhood, but if we do not at least attempt to say, hey, look, responsible development, we're good with that, we accept that, but when you start allowing corporate to take over, then you're not gonna have a chance to stop them in the future. And nothing against the overexploitation of the country, but you know, we drive up and down the country and go up to Montana where my wife's family has a homestead through the Rocky Mountains, and we are seeing the drastic change to communities, to beautiful rural, you know, settings that are just dotted with stores that, you know, Dollar Generals, Dollar Tree, Family Tree. They're just really, really out of control, and there just needs to be a little bit of concern. You know, there was an article as well that came out just this last Sunday in the New York Times. I'm sure it's going to be presented to you, but I have the copy here, and it's from November 17th, this Sunday, and it's how Tulsa fought capitalism, and it goes in to talk about the quality of the food that they're putting in, the lack of, and how it's squeezing out local businesses, and how certain communities like Adelos and Pecos, you know, they can't compete with a market where you are bringing in low-grade quality food. It's not what we want our kids to have, and we plan on passing our place down to our kids and our grandkids, and we don't wanna say there goes the neighborhood. So there's a lot of concerns, you can have that for public record, but I'm sure some more will be talking about some of the other aspects of you know, what this is gonna bring to community.
One other question, so
Sure.
just so I can understand your position.
Sure.
You're not opposed to all commercial developments in that area.
Correct.
You know, if there was something that
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
could
something for the
support,
community.
you would be for it, but
Yeah, in
it
my
just-
letter, I stated that this is gonna serve more of the folks traveling through the area, coming from Klein's Corners and getting off 285, who happen to see this there. It's gonna serve those folks more than the people in our general area of El Dorado and the greater community. Some folks in the news, I heard them commenting that it's, oh, those elitist people and all that. We're not elitist. We are hardworking folks and we budget ourselves and we'll use coupons, but we just don't support companies that come in that are just going because they have the big dollars and they're just gonna be placed everywhere and without the people's, input, or even having any say in it. And so when it was administratively approved, we were scratching our heads and going, wow, this is gonna impact our community for the next 100 years. And if we wanted to live on the south end of Cerritos Road, we'd be living on that area where it's high traffic and all about that. And this is the last pristine corridor coming into the Santa Fe area. And when we moved out there driving as a kid to Pecos, in that whole area, we were charmed by the beauty of the mountains and the pinon trees and how vast you can see it all, and it feeds right into our area right there. And when it gets changed, it's gonna be a sad day.
The property that you live on, is that the property that used to have the exposed adobe wall around it?
Correct.
Edwin,
Me and my brother built that when I was 19,
I remember
18. Yeah.
another question. Are you okay with, I guess you're familiar with the use list on the plats. So are there uses there that you do like?
Well, in my letter that I submitted with my appeal, we did talk about what certain neighbors and the community have talked about is trying to get that property into either a community park or a preserved or a trailhead. It feeds right up to the mountain behind there to the El Dorado Wildlife or Community
Conservation area.
Yeah, beautiful area. It would be a great trailhead to get right up there. And we know that Joe is required to put into his development some kind of park and stuff like that, and we think that would be better serving for it instead of getting off the freeway and going, whoa, a big box store right in this pristine, beautiful, little meadow area. It just seems out of place right there. If it was in his greater plan up there, it seems like it would be at least more hidden and off the road and blending in with other in a little mini strip mall or whatever type you have it. But in that spot right there, it just seems it's going to be incredibly an eyesore and just something that will change the dynamics of it. But it loses the charm. And what I love about Santa Fe and the Santa Fe County is that we are the city different for a reason, is that we have those charm and we've been able to at least a little bit fend off some of this over influence of some of these big corporations that think that they're gonna put them everywhere. Just in the Albuquerque area with the Dollar General, there are 16 of them in the greater area if you consider Rio Rancho and Bernalillo, down to Las Lunas and Bernalillo. But if you include the Dollar Tree and the Dollar, the Family Dollar, there are over 70 in that same area of these stores. And it's one of those, when's enough is enough. We live close enough. We're 10 minutes from town. We can get to any of these stores in town in 10 minutes. I don't need the convenience to that badly most of the folks they come to work anyway in Santa Fe. So it's not like it's gonna really serve our community.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification.
Sure.
You referenced the El Dorado Conservation Area.
Yes.
That is, just for what it's worth, that is restricted for the exclusive use of El Dorado lot owners and their guests.
So what I understand is talking with the county, because we were looking at even a group of people out there willing to buy that property from Joe and keep it as part of just a preserve. But neighboring folks who border up against it, Los Vaqueros and all of these different groups, if they are bordering it, they have use of that, is what I understand. But it's not for the public in general.
I hike it. I have occasionally come across people that are not El Dorado residents, but under the covenants, that land is deeded to the El Dorado Community Improvement Association. I just don't want people to think that if that were to become a community park, anybody can use it without the consent. It's supposed to be for lot owners and their guests. Just for clarification.
Thank you for clarification. Okay,
Sure.
anything else?
I think I covered everything I needed.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. Mr. Carnes?
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Joseph Carnes with Summer Carnes and Associates. I represent the applicant Pedigo Construction LLC. Representatives of that the applicant are here tonight. Gerald Pedigo is here. He's going to say a few words after I get done. Drew Crosby is here. I'm also here with Maury Walker, the project engineer. He'll be available to answer any questions you might have. And Danny Martinez, representative of the property owner, is here. My client Pedigo Construction LLC is under contract to purchase the property from Mr. Miller's entity. As staff just advised you a few minutes ago, this appeal challenging the use of the property for retail commercial purposes is without merit. We ask that you follow staff's recommendation and uphold the land use administrator's decision to approve this application, which the administrator approved pursuant to a ministerial standard. The standard set up in the code is ministerial. It does not allow for exercise of judgment as to the use or the nature of the development. That is a different type of process that already took place in the planning process. To torture an old saying, this appeal is a decade late and a Dollar General short. Let me explain why. The appeal is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the county's planning and development process. Policy decisions, like what uses should go where, are made during the planning process. I know you know this. In this case, the planning process was completed in 1993 and updated in 2009. Once the plan is in place, development applications such as the one before you come forward, and this is the key part, are evaluated based on the adopted plan. This is the intended follow-through on the planning process, not a reopening of that planning process, which took place in this case over a period of 2 decades, most recently ending in 2009 with adoption of the updated or amended master plan that Mr. Manzanares described to you. This appeal is analogous to the presidential election, which takes place the first Tuesday in November. That's when everybody votes. When the new president is sworn in 2 months later in January, that's not time to have another vote. The swearing in is follow through. That's what we're talking about, is follow through on a long process. This administrative application for a building and use that are consistent with the already approved plan, again, are follow through on that plan. In this case, the plan, which the BCC approved, allows for retail commercial development as of right. And there's no basis for revisiting the BCC's legislative decisions, first made 27 years ago in 1993, when the BCC approved the Cimarron Village Master Plan in the first instance. That plan provided for mixed uses on the east side of Highway 285, including retail commercial. In reality, these folks challenging the retail use aren't a decade late, they're 27 years late. 11 years later, in 2004, the BCC legislatively adopted the Highway 285 South Highway Corridor Master Plan and District Overlay in 2004. That plan expanded on the already approved master plan and again allowed retail use on the east side of Highway 285. I'm going to read to you a little bit. There was talk about public participation in these planning processes. In 2004, Resolution 2004-73 described the process of the Highway US 285 South Highway Corridor Plan and said, whereas over the course of 3 years, the Planning Committee at that time held regular publicly noticed meetings regarding the US 285 South Highway Corridor Plan, including public community-wide meetings on August 14th and September 30th of 2002. And whereas the Planning Commission revised the US 285 South Highway Corridor Plan to incorporate public comments and concerns. That's the purpose of the planning process, to decide what we're going to do with a large area, get the community involved, and adopt a plan. That was what was done in 2004. Subsequently, the property owner, Mr. Miller, applied for an amendment to the Cimarron Village Master Plan to bring the original master plan, approved in 1993, into compliance with the corridor plan and the district overlay. The BCC approved that amended master plan in 2009, as Mr. Manzanares explained, specifically allowing retail use of this property as a permitted use, a use of right. And you've looked at that plan earlier in this hearing. As your staff pointed out to you, the time for debate about whether to allow retail commercial use on this property is long past. The application to construct the dollar store is the tail on the dog. It is follow through that the county's SLDC defines as a ministerial action, one that involves non-discretionary application of the standards of the SLDC to an application, not a reconsideration of the already approved use. The land use administrator and her staff did their job in this case by ensuring that the proposed construction meets the applicable SLDC requirements. There's talk about what was submitted as part of the application by the appellant here. Maury Walker prepared the engineering studies and the traffic impact analysis for this project. I don't know if they were reviewed, but they were done and submitted to staff in order to demonstrate, based on evidence of the record, compliance of this project with the applicable standards in the county code. The only question before this commission is the same as the one that the administrator already answered in the affirmative, and is really not challenged in this appeal. This application meets all applicable code requirements, and under the SLDC must therefore be approved. This is a ministerial decision that the land use administrator made, and it's a ministerial decision that is before you today. Now you're gonna hear from lots of people testifying about how they don't want this particular retail commercial use to happen. Please keep in mind that the county has allowed the use of this property for retail commercial since 1993, and in my experience, and you can talk to your county council about this, it's not the county's business to determine what particular retail use goes forward on a particular piece of property. The list that's attached to the master plan that you've been looking at identifies retail use as the allowed use as of right. Your job today is not to second guess the BCC's legislative decisions over the past 3 decades to allow for retail use as of right on this property. As staff recommends, we ask that you uphold the land use administrator's decision to approve the application and that you deny this appeal. And Chair Gonzalez, I'd like to reserve just a couple of minutes at the end. I know we're gonna have a lot of speakers tonight, so I wanna make sure that these points, this is critical, that you keep in mind that this is a ministerial decision that you're reviewing today. It's not a case where everything gets reopened to decide what should be done with this property. The plan is in place, we are following the plan. So if I could have just a minute at the end of the hearing, I would appreciate that. I'll stand for any questions and I'll hand it over to Mr. Pedigo.
Justin, do you want to say? I just have a question for sort of a couple. You cited in 2004, there was a whereas you read from something and there were a bunch of meetings. Do you have any idea how many people attended those meetings? Can you help us on that?
Chair Gonzalez, Member Katz, that was 2 years before my time in Santa Fe. I arrived in 2006, so I don't know how many people were involved in those meetings. I don't know if there's anybody here who was, but it was a planning process conducted pursuant to the standards set forth in the county code. And as I read, there were multiple meetings that that folks could attend.
Okay, the other question I have for you is, do you have any sense of why there is such hostility to Dollar General stores?
I would be speculating, Mr. Pedigo is in the business of constructing Dollar General stores, he might be able to address that, but I would be speculating to guess at people's motivations.
Thank you.
But I would point out, when somebody moves to a particular area, it's incumbent upon them to do due diligence in not only seeing what's there, but what has been approved. I bought my house, I live in El Dorado. I back onto Rancho Viejo. Before I bought my property, I looked at the Rancho Viejo plans there's a master plan for Rancho Viejo. It planned development pretty close to my property. And I took that in mind and I bought my house in recognition, having done that due diligence. And I think it's important to keep in mind that these plans have been public since 1993. This planning process has been undertaken, has been a public process, and resulted in the decision, in the wisdom of the BCC, to adopt a plan that allows for this type of use as of right in this area.
Mr. Chair, what was the purpose then of the community meetings that occurred about a year ago at the country store where Mr. Miller and his associates presented what their thoughts were as for the development of this corridor?
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez, Member Resnick. I represent Pedigo Construction LLC. I do not represent Mr. Miller, so I was not involved. Perhaps Mr. Martinez can address that, but I'm not in a position to speculate as to what this meeting is all about. I do point out that there was an approved master plan, and that master plan remains in effect today, obviously.
Alright, any other questions? JJ?
I had a question. You know, I kind of take issue with your statement that you approve this or nothing. You know, I haven't heard anybody say that Mr. Miller is not entitled to develop that land commercially. But you tell us here that you approve this application, or you have to approve it. You know, the thing is that we haven't denied anything yet, and I think Mr. Miller has lots of options. But you tell us you're set on this one development. That's my only concern.
Is that a statement or a question?
That was a statement plus a question, because we haven't denied anything, and he tells us we have to approve this.
And just to clarify, Chair Gonzalez, Member Gonzalez, I fully recognize the standard here, it's a ministerial standard. There's no discretion that the land use administrator could bring to this. That's as defined in the SLDC. If this development, if the building meets the standards of the county code, it must be approved. That's what ministerial means, versus a quasi judicial decision that involves discretion. So that's my position in reading the county code. Again, you can talk to your counsel if you like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I had a question for staff. I'm looking at the usage matrix for 285 SHCD. How does the Dollar General store fit in? What category does it fit into in the usage matrix?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Shepherd, it doesn't, because it's governed through the master plan, because it's a PD. All PDs go through their master plan use list. It's within the 285 corridor, but does not have to abide by the use matrix within the 285 corridor.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff or Mr. Carnes? Okay,
So Mr. Pedigo will
Yes.
speak for a few minutes and then we'll be available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Sir, can I swear you in? Raise your right hand, you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name for the record.
Gerald Pettigo.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I am Gerald Pettigo, Pettigo Construction. We are developers. We build different types of properties from retail to government type properties that we lease for Department of Revenue and Department of Safety and other things such as that. Anytime we go and look for a piece of property, we go into an area and try to look for property that are already properly zoned. We hope in that regard it won't be invasive to any of the community because it's already been determined that that's a use that's permissible. Rarely do we ask for rezoning for that purpose. Such is the case here. We came to town and met with a realtor, Ty Bixby, and he is the one that initially put the contract together for us on this piece of property, and it's part of that process. We also have selected people from this area, an architect and an engineer that reside and work here locally. Maury Walker does that services for us on the civil side, and Eric Enfield is doing those services for architectural purposes. So we don't try to bring in people, we haven't tried to bring people in from Santa Fe, we've tried to work with everyone here. As to Dollar General, they are a large corporation. We don't own Dollar General or any part of it, we are developers, we build buildings and then lease it to them. That's our purpose, is to build this building and lease it to Dollar General. They may own some properties, but by and large, they rent almost every property that they occupy. I will tell you this, they are a large corporation. They began with very small roots, with one small general merchandise store. That's their beginning. They grew, they ended up developing a store that, as still it does today, sells general merchandise. A small amount of grocery goods, clothing, household goods, some auto goods, just a small combination of everything. You probably have been in a Dollar General store, so you know the type of products they sell. I would say that they are not a dollar store. Their products are priced all over. They have dollar in their name. I guess that stems from the very beginning when they first started in a small town in Kentucky. But at any rate, they have a wide range of goods, and they are basically a retail general merchandise type store. I guess they're successful not because of necessarily what they do, but because customers frequent their store. They are very good at identifying areas that there are citizens of that area that want that store there. I would say that every retail store out there is not dependent on what they do necessarily, they're dependent upon customers. And so if customers are not frequenting these stores, they're not going to be successful. So I find that the reason for their success is because of us, me, you, all of us that purchase products there. That they are a successful store, they do that. The only thing else I can tell you is that we want to be a citizen to this community. We will be generating, as you well know, gross receipts tax, paying property taxes, and we'll be hiring employees from this area, or the Dollar General Corporation will be. We have also been speaking with contractors in this area to build the building for us. We don't anticipate bringing in out-of-state contractors or anything like that. We had meetings today with different ones, and so that's what we hope to do. And I'll be happy to try to answer any questions if I can.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. So you are the contractor lessor of the property?
I will not, construction is in our name, yes.
Okay, so you build the building.
We will employ a contractor, a New Mexico contractor to build the building.
Is it then leased out to the Dollar Corporation?
That's correct.
And then what happens if it weren't to succeed, if the tenant couldn't succeed in its business plan?
Well,
What happens to the building then?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, I can tell you that they would have responsibility of keeping that store occupied during that time. They sign a 15-year lease with 3 5-year renewal options. So that's 30 years. There may come a time, I don't know how to predict that, but at that point in time, they would probably, if the building was become unoccupied, then we would certainly seek to lease the property to another retail enterprise, just like any other commercial property might do.
Now, there's entities called the Family Dollar, the Dollar General, the Dollar Tree. Are they all one and the same corporation?
They are not. Dollar General, and I will tell you what I know. I'm not in any way an employee of Dollar General or know anything about them other than what I could read in financial reports, just like you could, I guess. Family Dollar and Dollar Tree, I believe, are owned by the same corporation. Dollar General, to my knowledge, does not have any ownership in anything other than Dollar General stores.
Anything else?
Not this
Right.
time.
Yeah, will your company then own the building and the land and
Yes.
lease it to Dollar General?
Yes.
And do you own other properties that you lease to Dollar General?
No, not at this time. We have others that we do, sometimes what we will do on occasion is sell some properties we develop.
So this is the first time that you've done one for Dollar
In New
General?
Mexico, this will be the
No,
first.
nationally.
This is the first time we've done a Dollar General, yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
We've done other retail and other government-owned properties, but this is the first Dollar General we'll be doing.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Have you personally visited the Dollar General stores, seen their operation,
Mhm.
the type of product that they sell, and how they keep their stores?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, I have a Dollar General store within probably 1,500 feet of my personal home. It's on the highway right off, we're on a side street, our house is, but right off Main Highway. I've attended it several times, picking up odds and ends for my children for school the next day. They have a small school supply section. I've been in there before to buy socks for my daughter when she forgot them for a basketball game. I've picked up a gallon of milk as my wife calls on the way home, so yes, sir, I've been into several others, but that one I've frequented more than others.
Anything else?
How did they come into the picture if you're buying the land and leasing it? Is it that we're searching out a tenant for this, for your purchase? Or did they come to you? How does this evolve?
Well, as I say, we develop different types of properties. Some, a lot of office buildings we do, and then also we do small amount of retail. We pursued Dollar General to develop some for them. One of the areas that we decided to look into was the New Mexico area. And so we ended up looking at this property and some other towns that we are also looking at in New Mexico, and have signed leases for some other towns here in New Mexico also.
So you examine the financial statements of the tenants, correct?
Well, we have that ability just like anyone does through the filings that they do.
In your experience, have you ever run into anything like this where you've had the feedback that you're getting from the 285 corridor residents?
I developed some apartments in the past that was like this, that my memory was it was properly zoned also. And it adjoined some residential single-family homes, and I've had a big turnout. I'm developing a neighborhood now in an area that has had opposition to it, although there's houses all the way around it, and it's a residential neighborhood. So yes, sir, I have experienced that. This is pretty much, my grandfather was in the real estate business, my dad was in the real estate business, and I probably don't know it very well, but it's what I do. And so it's being in it for that many years, I've run into those opportunities where there are those that are opposed. And I'm not surprised about that, because everyone has differing opinions. And that's the reason that we establish rules and guidelines for our municipalities to operate under, and then everybody knows. It's upfront.
Thank you.
All right, earlier, a few minutes ago, you mentioned the name Eric Enfield as being your architect.
Mhm.
Have you directed him to design anything to go with the land compatible in New Mexico, or are you guys gonna just build a standard building?
No, this building has the adobe style finishes on the outside. It is, we basically employ him to come in compliance with the standards that has been previously established. It's not gonna look like a typical Dollar General store. It's completely, it has parapet walls that will conceal all the way around. I think that probably, I don't know if you've reviewed the plans or seen them, but it should fit into the area completely with complete adobe style.
I'm familiar with Eric's work, he does a good job.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right, somebody else want to speak on your team? No? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you will give us the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
Danny Martinez. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, again, I come here in representing Joe Miller and his past efforts to try to develop these properties. My involvement with the dollar store is no involvement. It's strictly to tell you what has happened in the past in regards to Joe Miller, okay? Joe Miller started this project, Cimarron Village, in 1992. Went through 3 years of battle. Then an 11-year moratorium was issued in El Dorado, shutting down all development in El Dorado for that period of time. In the meantime, the county was preparing to proceed with the Sustainable Land Development Code, and we were very involved in it. There was a total of 23 meetings that were held within staff, community. We had 4 community meetings over those years. So this has been a long process to try to develop this property. And as you can see, property hasn't been developed. Why? Because we know we have a lot of opposition in El Dorado. Why? Because El Dorado doesn't want national firms. You know, what they want is they want open space, they want minimal development that's gonna pacify them. And again, for Mr. Katnack, all the respect, you will probably never see Miller's property developed because he's been incapacitated and he's not doing this anymore right now. So all this effort and all these master plans, you know, they're probably gonna be meaningless because the ability to develop is really hard in El Dorado. So again, you know, when we talk about previous meetings, there were tons of meetings. The 285 corridor, as it was approved with the use lists, with the designations, was by the community, not the county, because it's the community that had the input on what they wanted in this development zone. So what happened there is master plan number 3 changed it all over again because of a new 285 corridor plan. Well, in that use list, well, let me put it this way. If we use the use list of the SLDC, that property could be used for a lot more uses. But there was a specific use list on that property, and when it stated retail, people didn't really realize what retail meant. I have heard, we don't want Kentucky Fried Chicken, we don't want Taco Bell, we don't want another gas station, we don't want this, we don't want that. All respect to it, but when the corridor plan was approved and those properties were zoned and those use lists were established, that was the people's choice. So not anybody else. They're the ones that emphasize to the county, this is how we want these properties developed. That's where we're at today. Again, it was a community involvement, lots of meetings. There was no hidden secrets. We know what they don't want, and they don't want in a qualified intersection this close to the interstate that should serve the community for the capacity that it has as a commercial property. Again, you know, it may never happen. Properties for sale, you know, Mr. Miller family's ready to sell the whole thing if that's what they want to. Make them an offer. We'll shut down the rest of the development. But the reality is the people, the community were the ones that were responsible for what's coming up on this property, and that master plan.
Do you think that a lot of the community members moved out, or do you just think they didn't understand the definition of retail?
Well, we had a community meeting, excuse me, in July last year of 2018. Had close to 90 people show up. We talked about the developments, we talked about all the potential, we talked about urgent care, we talked about everything that you could talk about. And yeah, they stated, you know, we don't want another gas station out there. And again, you know, you take that to heart is what you do. And again, when they say fast food, what better place for a fast food restaurant than next to the interstate? And what they did is they said, no fast food restaurants. So slowly but surely, they're kicking out potential uses because the community doesn't like them. And again, that wasn't the intent when they created the 285 corridor. It was open. You know, there's another property right across the street that's been designated commercial also. So the potential for a lot of commercial, not only in our Cimarron subdivision, but the adjoining parcels it's there, it exists, and the use lists are just as big on it. Nationals, we understand that the local mom and pop shops need to be protected, but the mentality is that the national groups are the ones that they don't want in these places. Walgreens, grocery stores, that's what they've chosen, but again, they're the ones that pushed this 285 plan. That's what they have now.
Alright, any questions?
I have a small question. Does the village of El Dorado have bylaws?
Mr. Chair. El Dorado is a subdivision of approximately 2,770 lots. Surrounded in the 285 corridor, you have not only El Dorado, which doesn't physically border 285, but you have Dos Gallegos, Alteza, within this corridor, Belize Estates, Los Caballos, the ridges. El Dorado has been referred to as the community with the big stick because the other subdivisions are 60 to 90 lots, and El Dorado also has a amenities program. One was the 4,000 acre conservation area that I referred to. So it's not, when the newspapers talk about the 285 corridor, for decades, they seem to call it all El Dorado. If there's a traffic accident 5 miles outside of El Dorado, and it's on 285, the newspapers talk about an accident in El Dorado or by El Dorado. It's just, El Dorado is like the big name for that area, and that whole area from the interstate down to Lamy, basically both sides of the highway, was purchased by the AMREP Corporation, and they created El Dorado, 6,000 acres, a 4,000 acre conservation area, and then sold off these other large parcels to individual developers.
The reason why I asked
Mr. Miller bought,
Right.
parts of it too.
And I can say that Mr. Miller has been told that his property isn't part of part of El Dorado,
It's
that we're outside of it. And they're outright, we're in the community, but we're not a part of El
Right.
Dorado.
That answers that.
Any other questions? Okay, let's, no other speakers, right? Okay, so let's,
Well, I have a question. Are we gonna get into the design plans or, because I saw it in the packet, how the building was fronting the road and the angle of the building, signage and, things like that, will that be coming up?
I think we can ask whatever questions we want. I kind of opened it up there already as far as design.
Mr. Chair, that's correct, you can definitely, discuss those
Is
matters
this,
as
is this
well.
the appropriate time for it, or do we hear from people who wanna speak?
I think we should probably pursue the public hearing first.
Would agree, especially with the weather, let's let the people talk.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if we do proceed to public hearing, I have a number of handouts that have been given by the public that I'd like to pass out. There's not enough for everyone, but I do have enough for you, the recorder, our legal department, and staff. So if you wouldn't mind, prior to the public hearing, I could give you these.
Okay.
These were from today, they're not in your packet.
Will those of us who don't have copies have an opportunity to read them? And why can't we,
And why can't we have copies?
why can't we get enough copies?
Mr. Chair, if you, I can make more copies, these were just what the public supplied, so
Okay.
I can do that.
Yeah, let's get some more copies.
So there, Mr. Chair, the copies are being made right now.
Any other questions or comments before we, while we're waiting? So, let's start the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, you did say, we were limiting each speaker to 3 minutes, is
Yes.
that, okay, would you like me to
Yes,
keep
please.
track of the, okay.
Okay,
Is this the first group?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna swear you all in, could you raise your right hand? You swear affirm the testimony about to give us the whole truth?
Yes.
Yes. Before you speak, please state your name for the record.
Good evening, my name is Roger Taylor, I live in Galisteo. I'm co-chair of the 285 Alliance, which is an information and advisory group, which has worked on many of the things you've been talking about tonight. The original 285 corridor overlay, the code, and things like that. There are a couple of things that I'd like to talk about, but first I'd like to distribute some summary of comments that a number of our members are going to make. So we have a copy for each of you. I'd like to point out that this plan has had many iterations over the years. And the last public meetings, which were in 2016 through 2018 in the neighborhood at the country store, presented a Colorado ski town with small businesses, local businesses, unique businesses. We specifically talked at that time about not wanting chain stores. Dollar stores were mentioned, etc. We were told those were not under consideration, they were not part of the master planning, and that was not gonna be happening. And that was by Mr. Miller and Mr. Martinez. There are a number of us who are here, who were at those meetings, that can attest to that. We had a lot of discussion about concerns and issues. There were a number of these meetings where they came back and made changes to address them. I'm going to talk about two of them, which we're concerned about because now we're seeing the opposite of what was presented. One is environmental. The area that we're talking about for this lot number 5, was told to us was going to be open space. Now we see a 9,000 square foot building and an associated parking in an area with very steep landscaping in the area. It butts up against that. They will leave no room for runoff, for rain absorption, etc. As Edgar has previously mentioned, this is an area where rainwater brings a lot of mud on the roads and down onto 285. That creates a safety problem. People are going to be coming up in a little while to talk about traffic and safety concerns, some of the accidents that have been in there, and that's been under opportune conditions. Not rain, not water, not snow, etc. We do believe there should be an environmental impact because changing this master plan around, where this now becomes the backdoor phase 1, is going to cause a lot of issues with that landscape. We also think that there's an issue here of fire safety. We know that climate change is upon us. We know that there is burns that have happened in the area. There are a couple of areas that still show burn scars for the last couple of years. So we don't understand how someone could come in and do such a massive first building on first phase, where it's going to have a big impact on the area, and there is no fire safety component.
okay, so your time is up.
Right, so we do believe that we would like to have both of those things done.
Thank you.
My name is James Oyster, 20 Descanso Road. And I want to talk about the need for an extensive traffic study. The data in the Traffic Impact Assessment, TIA, is no longer relevant or sufficient and is most certainly statistically invalid. The data provided by Dollar General to extrapolate the current and future traffic flow is based on past survey dates, and it does not address the traffic volume issues of the next 10 years. Specifically, the report includes only 4 dates of 2 hours each over a 12-year period. The traffic counts from 7 to 9 a.m. and from 4 to 6 p.m. were collected on March 5th of this year, October 15th and 16th of 2014, and August 7th of 2008. There are in addition, no breakouts on personal cars and truck traffic, although we know that there have been several fatalities from car and truck collisions. This summer and fall have seen a significant increase in the real estate sales, new restaurant activity and population growth in the area, whereas in the past 10 years, the real estate sales and development along the US 285 South corridor has been relatively slow. A new TIA study should be performed which takes into account these more recent changes and models more accurate projections. We respectfully ask the county to include an analysis of large trucks and semis making turns off of I-25 onto US 285. Of concern are the issues of semis exiting I-25 at high speeds and being funneled into a restrictive space on US 285. Also, large vehicles changing lanes in a short distance from the bottom of the off-ramp to the traffic light in order to access or egress the proposed development, as well as turning tight at the traffic light, which may cause crossing into adjacent lanes. This is an area of steady traffic to and from businesses in the area, like Cafe Fina, the future CBD dispensary, as well as the access ramp to I-25. Additional concerns are turning maneuvers in and out of the parking lots, utilizing a narrow single lane, which is also used by homeowners behind the proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Lynette Kessler. I'm gonna speak on additional costs. The Fiscal Impact Assessment, FIA, concentrates on county costs associated with additional public facilities and services that are required by such development, and also the FIA concentrates on the feasibility for financing such facility and service costs. Given the record of fiscal impact this particular type of business has had on previously existing surrounding businesses, there is concern about potential long-term overall reduction in economic income and taxable revenue to the county. The OSHA reports you will be hearing throughout this hearing documents this fact indeed. There are long-term reductions for the county in income tax, in income and tax revenue. The FIA also does not include the increased significant costs of continued county and state resources monitoring and managing Dollar General infractions. We respectfully ask that the FIA be supplemented by an assessment of the fiscal impact on existing businesses and individuals in the 285 South Corridor community, focusing on the cost to existing businesses and future tax revenue. There is also the real shifting of answers from the county on what conditions of approval were required from Joe Miller before approval of his 2010 plan, and to what extent the current SLDC code applies to these conditions. Our understanding is that there are existing conditions of approval not yet met for the master plan, and that the Dollar General building is a backdoor lot approach to avoiding these conditions of approval on the larger plan. This proposal has undergone many changes over the years. For example, this property is at the foot of a steep hill, which was indicated for future open space and yet is now a commercial lot. It would be far better developed as the organic market or the education center Mr. Miller originally promoted to get public approval way back when. All of this is in the handout that you received. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, what is your address for the record?
Lynette Kessler, El Dorado.
Next.
I will go. My name is Chris Knapp, 7 Encantado Circle in El Dorado. I'm not associated with any of the groups here. I am just an El Dorado resident. I am an avid bicyclist. So I bicycled past this location probably 3 times a week including during that period when it was supposed to have been posted, which, I'm sorry, you know, you can make the claim that you might miss it at 55 miles an hour. I missed it at 20 miles an hour or 15 miles an hour. I never saw a single indication that this was going to occur. So that's my first comment about this process, is transparency as far as if this project meets all the requirements that the county aspires and says it does, why is there this attempt to obfuscate, to basically hide the notice from the public? And there will be others that'll make that same comment. When discussing this with other people after I was made aware of it, I found absolutely no one in probably the 30 or 40 people that I discussed this with that had ever heard anything about it at that point. So I think there's a little bit of a failure there. And if it's an approved process and it met the approval process, then it definitely should be reviewed, because I think you would probably have a lot less people here if they knew what the heck was going on. I'm not an expert on zoning or the county's operations in any way, really. But I understand, I'm a 35-year veteran of the Forest Service, and we have a planning process that's very similar. We have a forest plan, which I guess would be like your zoning, and we do project level, NEPA, National Environmental Policy. So we write environmental impact statements on how that particular project meets those requirements that are set aside by the zone, essentially. We make a big point out of making that information public, so traffic studies, environmental impacts to wildlife or to watersheds or to traffic, social impacts, essentially. There's, again, no transparency of that. The question becomes, why do a traffic study if you don't share it with anybody that might be affected by it? So that's, and I know my time is short, so I'm gonna jump right to one last thing, which is, we also do this thing called a cumulative effects analysis, where we look at, does this, yes, this project may meet the criteria, but does it create a pathway, does it cause a problem down the line? Will there be more like it? And then we're gonna have to eventually say no, you know, because it exceeds some other threshold, light pollution, traffic, essentially. So is there any display of that? Has there been a study of, with this, when this project is fully developed, the entire length of the corridor is fully developed, does it exceed that initial zoning requirement? You know, on where people want it, when they were making comments to it way back in 94 or 2004 or whatever it was, does it exceed that threshold?
Your time is up.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Yeah, my name is Catherine Toll, I live on Camino Arcote, and I co-chair the 285 All, which is an RO with the county. This is not a conversation of anti-retail sentiment. It's about a question of what the retail activity is. I was also involved in the creation of the overlay that covers the 285 South corridor from I-25 down to the road that goes off to Galisteo, and protects either side of the highway as to what can be placed there and where the commercial lots are, and they're very carefully placed at intersections, et cetera. So we know that Cimarron Village is a planned development, but it has permitted uses that are not part of what the SLDC and the overlay requested. When Mr. Miller presented it to us, it was of course all sorts of very nice things about assisted living and affordable housing and organic markets, and now we're looking at a dollar store, which is a very different animal. This is a type of business that has already proved itself not to have the community's best interest at heart. In fact, when it comes to Dollar General, New Mexico Attorney General Balderas has an open lawsuit against them. And it would be, we do request that the county looks into this and perhaps reports back to the 285 South Corridor community about the status of that lawsuit and what is going to happen with it or how serious it is. Nationally, since the year 2000, Dollar General has been fined close to $49 million for employment discrimination, accounting fraud, wage violations, workplace safety and health violations, consumer protection environmental violations. And they don't just do it once and get a fine. They are repeat offenders. They just do it over and over and over again. Studies show also that dollar stores offer a false economy and are less affordable per unit than other big box retailers like a Walmart or a Costco. A growing number of municipalities have been adding zoning bylaws to discourage the establishment of dollar stores. Dollar General stifle the local competition, and they wind up hurting the communities they're serving. It's not a welcome addition into what is already a fragile retail environment. This applicant is associated with a chain that has misled and deceived, consumers over and over again. And articles and reports that are in the handout that we provided for you will attest to that fact, and there's an OSHA report in there and other things. So the business model is a predatory business model, and it's proven to have destroyed other businesses, especially local food markets. We have a real-time example.
Time is up.
All right, Adela's in Pecos, just
Right.
wanna say that. And we don't wanna see that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. Sorry for the inconvenience about the setup here, but we
Yeah.
gotta set up.
But thank you for making it work.
Thank you.
Was one of those people that Lisa?
Sabina? Is that, yeah.
Oh, fine. Thanks.
Lisa seems to like my
I'm over it. We'll go down.
I want you to take this guys around.
Okay, before you speak, I'm going to swear you all in. Raise your right hands. You swear affirm the testimony about to give us the whole truth.
I do.
And before you speak, please state your name for the record.
First? Sure, why not? My name is Michael Scott. I'm the president of the Old Road Homeowners Association, which is associated with the larger development of the Art Barns. Chair Gonzalez, commissioners, I appreciate the time that you're giving to us this evening to hear about our concerns for the community. And I think that the show of force that is here this evening also is a testament to the commitment of people who live in the corridor, which is likely to be affected. I'm sure everyone has talked about the fact that they're most concerned with the fact that they did not get an opportunity to really review this proposal and participate in the process to the letter of the code. So, because I know people have spoken to that already, I'd like to talk about the persuasive attempt made by the attorney on behalf of the developer. I'd like to talk about the developer himself. Now, I don't know where he went to law school, but I'm sure that he was taught fallacious reasoning and fallacies of argument. And in this case, I'd like to expose the false analogy that he presented, suggesting that this case is analogous to the presidential elections. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. In a presidential election, hundreds of millions of dollars are spent for several years providing the public with the information that is absolutely necessary for them to cast their vote. That wasn't done here, was it? The airwaves are committed to people. But again, that wasn't done here. So to suggest that this is being revisited or that somehow or the other, this is analogous to trying to revoke a presidential vote after the inauguration and the swearing in of office is just simply not true. The second thing is, I've always been concerned about what's the need here? What need is being fulfilled for our community? The only person that addressed that I heard this evening was the developer who said, Family Dollar addressed the need. Did they? He said, oh yeah, there's overwhelming evidence that people in our community really want this Family Dollar. Well, was their assessment, their needs survey shared with you? I seriously doubt it, and it should be. Otherwise, their justification for putting this particular store in our community is suspect. We don't have that data. I'd sure like to look at it. Finally, you know, when the master plan was developed, the community was quite different. There were many people, traffic wasn't as bad, and I don't know if any of you live in the 285 corridor between I-25 and I-40, but it's a mess. Speeding is rampant. We don't have the police or the sheriffs to
Okay, so your
3
time is
minutes,
up.
okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very
And
much.
just remember, developers are like seagulls, they fly in, make a mess, fly away, so they don't have to live with the consequences.
Next.
Mr. Chair, my name is Matthew McQueen. I live in Galisteo, New Mexico. I am the state representative for House District 50. This area is within my district. I'm also a commuter. My wife and I drive through this area twice a day, usually pretty much every day, often with our kids in the car. I'm here tonight because I personally have concerns about the traffic and the safety of this area. And it's unfortunate that we don't have a big aerial, big blow up of the site. If you're familiar with it, it's where 25 is essentially headed east instead of north, so it jogs east. And the off ramp is, you're coming off at the speed limit 75, it's downhill, it's curved, and there's no reason, you're not forced to slow down. And that's true for commuters and cars, and unfortunately that's also true for big trucks. And as you've already heard, we've had a number of accidents, including fatalities. That it is so much of a concern, this stretch of 285, that Senator Peter Wirth and I organized a public safety town hall, and we brought in the New Mexico DOT to address it. And we had the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, the district engineer, and several other of their high-ranking officials. And we had a gym full of people, and they went away, they promised us they would study a whole list of ideas we gave them to make this safer. I think you've already heard that the traffic impact analysis we think is insufficient. One way it's insufficient is we have the DOT studying how to make this area safer. And then we also have this developer coming in, doing their own thing. And those two things are running parallel right now instead of in conjunction. Whatever changes DOT might make will impact this development. And this development will impact any changes the DOT might make. Those two things have to be merged. We have to consider all of this together in order to make the area safer. Finally, just because I've been listening in, Mr. Carnes said repeatedly that we're a decade too late, we're 3 decades too late. I'm really concerned how a 3-decade-old master plan hasn't expired. The community has changed since then, it's grown, the traffic patterns have changed. We need a master plan that reflects the current reality, not something that's 3 decades old. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'll be happy to start. My name's Malcolm McFarland. I've been a resident of El Dorado for about 20 years. I used to serve on the ECIA board. Here's some quick points to make. First, the ECIA owns a 9,000 acre nature preserve that's directly in front of the Dollar General store. How do you have a nature preserve with a commercial establishment? It's a 9,000 acre preserve that can't be built on, is a big hill, and the Dollar General will be exactly in front of that. There are approximately, I just guesstimate, 5,000 homes out there in that area. There are 2,800 just in El Dorado. If you average $300,000 value of those homes, that's about $1.5 billion in taxable property. If you say that it has a negative impact, just 1%, that's hundreds of times more tax revenue than will be generated by having Dollar General. Okay, so if you look at it from an economic standpoint, it makes no sense. If you take a step back and say the economic standpoint of Santa Fe, 285 is a gateway to Santa Fe from Texas. People come down the interstate, they get off the Clines Corner, they come up through the exquisitely beautiful Galisteo Basin. I just walked there today. It's one of the reasons people move to Santa Fe. They move there because of the natural beauty. Now, previously, y'all stopped a truck stop on the southern end because people coming to Santa Fe don't want to see a truck stop just before they come to Santa Fe. I mean, if they want, people don't move to Santa Fe for a Dollar General store. Virtually everyone in my community has bought their house, has moved from somewhere else for the natural beauty, for the artists. I probably have 5 published authors on my street. I probably have 20 artists who are in galleries. They're attracted to natural beauty. So economically, it doesn't make sense. In terms of what is viable as a business in Santa Fe, when we worry about the totality of the community and jobs, without question, the only true jobs besides the government is tourism. Tourisms can go to Bali, they can go to Florence, they can come to Santa Fe. So they come here to visit Santa Fe to see natural beauty and artists. They don't come here to see a Dollar General. One final thing. It really irritates me when I hear some sort of economic, racist sort of argument that is us rich white people keeping the poor from being able to buy something at a store, okay? Dollar General, the facts, the matters I was able to determine from 2018, they had 15,000 stores. 15,000 stores. They got a $40 billion market cap, but they're not gonna be paying people $15 an hour. Not only that, they're not gonna have full-time jobs. They'll be good 20-hour-a-week jobs, and you have no security in your 20 hours a week. You might have to work a Monday, a Wednesday, and the next week you have to work Tuesday and Friday. So, the end.
Thank you, thank you. Next?
Yes, my name is Jane Carson. I live across from El Dorado, have lived out there about 20 years. And there's one thing that's the most important that you can hear tonight regarding safety. That is a corridor for nuclear material going down the road. 285 is a corridor for nuclear material. You do not want to have an accident with that stuff with a big community out there. So that alone should stop this and any other building that might be planned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Rivera. I live right next door to where the Dollar General is gonna go up on 15 Camino Valle. And you know, I just there's wildlife there, there's deers, there's bobcats, I have coyotes in my yard. You know, when I originally bought the land from Mr. Miller, we never talked about, you know, commercial properties. I asked him about, you know, the area, and he said he owned most of that area, but he never told me that that was a commercial lot that I was buying right next door either. And you know, my kids ride their bikes down in that area, and just the traffic going in and out of Camino Valle onto 285, I just don't see how that's gonna work with the flow of traffic coming in, the lights. There's always an accident there at those lights. It's just even like you say, the signs that they posted up to tell us about the meeting and stuff, real small, and just everything about this store has just kind of been like, you know, real quick and just not very information based about it. So, you know, I'm just here to do what I can to try not to get that store up. So I'm really against it.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
I have a question, I don't know what on record. Are we allowed to ask questions to a specific person? Wait till the end? To a specific witness? To a specific community member? Can we ask a question? The reason why I ask that is Teresa.
Okay,
before you speak.
hold on, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Okay. We
Set up a flare.
Oh, okay. That's good, yeah. Wanna take a break, but energy.
Whatever group this is, yes.
So many.
Just before you get to where people are standing, you turn that way.
Okay, let's get back, get this thing going. We need to get him sworn in.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony about to give us the whole truth? Yes. Before you speak, please state your name for the record.
Robert Kaufman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Robert Kaufman, owner of a local residential property approximately 200 yards away from the proposed 9,000 square foot General Dollar store. So this literally hits home for me and hits home very hard. First, it is a gross misnomer that this local community has or had much of a voice in this general store proposal. I, for one, only recently heard of this monstrosity of a store that was to be built near my home. This development came as a literal shock to me, my child, and many of my neighbors. My family moved here approximately 14 years ago for various reasons, among those being the pristine nature of the area and a great place to raise kids, not to mention our exploration of various sacred Native American sites in the area. Last thing we need is to have corporate businesses potentially encroaching on my or my neighbor's property. I'm aware of what happens when big box stores, especially known for selling inferior products, move into our type of area, as I have a feeling you might as well. We have pride in our community, do not want to see a tragic degeneration of our very forward-looking and tight-knit community. We're not stupid and will together continue to protest any big box store coming into our community. I believe that our community's basic needs and wants is what ultimately counts, not just the profit margins of an obviously predatory corporation, namely the general store, dollar store. And by the way, for the record, most of us know exactly what retail means. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Tim Hornig. It's Astor Way, which is La Paz at El Dorado, one of the smaller developments in the El Dorado area. I'll have 2 points, they've already come up today. One is about the planning that was done previously in the approved master plan, which I understand is no doubt technically correct, but I do think that in this case where the large development has had pieces built up over the years, and the last one I would understand is the self-storage that was done a few years ago, and that extends the 5-year period for the whole master plan. May not have been what was intended in setting out the time limits for development. The self-storage was phase 4, I understand, and the we're discussing tonight is in phase 1. So I'm not sure exactly when the specific meetings were held to discuss that, but I imagine they were well before the 2008 or 2009 last update to the master plan. In that context, I'll talk about one specific concern we have, which is that it may not be a viable business. It's not one, from what I understand, I'm likely to frequent. And while I understand that Dollar General will have a commitment to the Pettigrew construction that's going to be leasing them the building, if it goes out of business, if it becomes vacant, I think that may be a concern and become an eyesore. And I don't know that there's any guarantee that can really realistically be given to the county that won't happen. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Richard Wiseman, I live in Alteza. I'd like to begin with a little show and tell. This photo was taken on the afternoon of October 27th, 2018, 5:05 p.m. I stopped momentarily while making a right turn onto Avenida Amistad from 285. This tragic rollover accident occurred in the intersection of 285 and Camino Valle and Amistad. A portion of the proposed Dollar General store can be seen right here. I'd like to make this an exhibit. May I turn this in? Who would like to receive it?
I'm thinking.
Okay. My wife and I are 32-year residents of this corridor. We remember the day when 285 was one lane in each direction. There were no lights of any kind. Today, I understand the corridor has a population of about 13,000. In addition, there's a steady stream of cars using 285 to get to 40, a mixture of cars and trucks, 1 or 2 of which have been involved in tragic accidents along our little stretch of 285. As we know, not everybody, we locals, obeys the 50-mile speed limit in our immediate area. If the dollar store is approved, there will be another steady stream of vehicles, Dollar General trucks. These trucks the ones that will be leaving I-25 at exit 290 will have approximately 3/10 of a mile to maneuver through 2 lanes of traffic to the left-hand turn lane at Camino Valle. It can be a dangerous maneuver with all the speeders and especially in inclement weather when the roads can be icy, slushy, or snow-packed. I worry too about slow-moving Dollar General trucks entering 285 traffic from Camino Valle. A speaker earlier this evening, I was taking notes, his name is James Oyster. He said the only traffic study that's been done this year by the developer occurred on March 5th, 4 measly hours, 7 to 9 a.m., 4 to 6 p.m. That's woefully inadequate. I'm with him that we need an extensive traffic study done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Destiny Allison. I am a managing partner of La Tienda at El Dorado, one of the 2 shopping centers that is developed in the area. And I'd like to just talk a little bit about community values and where we are today and what the impact of Dollar General will be on this community on a number of different levels. 10 years ago, we purchased a bankrupt shopping center from the bank during the worst recession we've ever had. The shopping center had never gotten off the ground. It had 1 tenant remaining in it. It had never paid its taxes. It had never made a single payment to the bank. Over the last 10 years, we have developed that shopping center in absolute partnership with this community, curating every single business that comes in. We have an ongoing running list of things that the community needs because we are in constant engagement with the community. And the reason that we're in constant engagement with the community is that 10 years ago, this Christmas, I started a newsletter that became the closest thing to a newspaper El Dorado has. It's read by over 3,000 people every week. It gets better than 50% open rate, and everything that's happening in the community comes through my desk because what I do is talk about what's happening in the community. So anything and everything that's going on, I get and I put back out, which is how the community at large really started to find out about what was happening with Dollar General. Somebody walked into my store and said, "Oh my God, is this true?" I said, "I don't know, I'll see what I can find out." And I found out, and we publicized this. Since then, we've been collecting petitions all over the community. I have another 100 or so to turn in tonight, big copies here of these going around. And one of the things that has made La Tienda successful is that we have been so focused. When the community said we needed a pharmacy, we brought in a pharmacy. We did not bring in a Walgreens, we brought in Del Norte Pharmacy, locally owned, locally operated. When the community said we needed more medical, we brought in more medical. Every single thing that the community has asked for, we have done our absolute best to provide without directly competing with any other existing business in the neighborhood. Because right now there are 2 shopping centers in the area, and one of them is 99% full, that's us, and the other one is about 65% full at the moment. We seem to take turns as businesses come and go. Never in the entire time that we've owned the shopping center have both commercial developments been full at the same time. It hasn't happened. The reason for that is that El Dorado is a rural area. 50% of the population does come into town and work in town. And bringing in a Dollar General has the ability to negatively impact not only our businesses, although maybe not quite so much, but the biggest business that it has the ability to impact is our grocery store. And Dollar General is known throughout the country for creating food deserts. And we are deeply, deeply concerned because losing our grocery store would be a travesty, not only to the El Dorado community, but to the Pecos community, the Glorieta community, the Galisteo community, the Lamy community. It's the only one in the area, and I don't know if you guys ever had time when it was 9 o'clock at night, you ran out of diapers, and you needed to get something, and driving all the way into town on a snowy night is impossibly dangerous and impossibly exhausting. Our grocery store is essential, and Dollar Generals take high dollar, long shelf life products to compete directly with existing grocery stores who have to provide produce and have to provide meats that have a shelf life and have very little profit margin in them. You don't have to take all of somebody's business to put somebody out of business, you only have to take 20%. Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo!
One breath.
My wife. I got most of it.
That's pretty fast.
I have more.
Okay, I'm gonna talk a little slower. Steve Yours, Destiny's husband, co-manager and co-owner of La Tienda Shopping Center, owner of the True Value Hardware Store. We actually live over in Sunlit Hills.
But we own property.
But we own the shopping center there in the community.
And a house in the
I hate to say it, but it sounds like, and I'm hoping he was wrong, but it sounds like this is
you get to hear us, but then you have no choice in the decision there. And I'm not really sure what your rules are, whether you have the ability to overrule this. And I hope you do. Clearly, this store coming in has not cared at all to find out if this community wants this store in this community. We're now at about 1,400 signatures. If you turn this protest down, then we understand our next protest is to go to the county commissioners. We'll be at 3,000 signatures in a community that's got maybe 5,000 houses. And we'll get there, because they're coming in every day to the local businesses to sign, no, I do not want this. But we've really seen three types of people. I've so far found that we've got 5 people that say they're very happy a Dollar General is coming because they have cheap school supplies. Then we have a larger population that are just opposed to it at all for any reason. And then we have a smaller group, and I kind of can fall in this, is not there. Not having that be the face of our community. There are other developable areas in this development that if Dollar General did have to force its way into a community that doesn't want it to be there, does it have to become the face of our community? Can it be next to the Napa Auto that we might get, and then a greenhouse business or a plants business or another hardware store like mine? But that one wouldn't work. And what it will do is it will give us the same thing that happened from a story I read in 1956, so I'm not sure, Article 56, is a business was built in Santa Fe that shocked everybody. It was so ultra-modern that it was why Santa Fe developed all the historical preservation acts that it has downtown, which is Garrett's Desert Inn shocked everybody. So they blocked it. If this goes through, it will shock everyone. We will start the movement to incorporate into the El Dorado area, probably from the Hill at Lamy all the way to the freeway, so we can then take our tax dollars and create our own village, town, or city. We would become the 13th largest in the state. We're the largest unincorporated area, population base in New Mexico. And our tax base exports dollars out of our area to support it. I wouldn't be in favor of it, but we would need to do that. We would need to do that to protect from just other rampant developments. We'll set our own things. A good example of a chain coming in, Blockbuster came into our community. They didn't last a year because they came up against a very local business.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for putting up
Can I
with
have
our.
one final comment? I know that this is probably out of line, but something I really feel like is necessary is that our laws exist according to the morals and values of the community they serve, and they are there for the greater good. In this particular instance, the CEO of Dollar General last year stated publicly that that consumers that support him, as you mentioned, the customers that he has are people who live in permanent recession. El Dorado has a median income of twice that of Santa Fe. It is not in permanent recession, and it will boycott this store. And then we have a big empty vacant space while you try to find another tenant for it with an ugly building that we really don't want. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Destiny, where's your copies here?
These are copies, they were already sorted, they were across.
Okay. Okay, there's 3 copies of this page.
I know there was someone was that's what I'm saying.
Here, we'll just turn this in later. Because we're collecting more, that way we can actually do it. Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, please get sworn in over here.
Everybody raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony about to give us the truth.
Yes.
So before you speak, please state your name for the record.
My name is Susan Edwards. I am the president of the Belicia Estates Homeowners Association. We had a homeowners meeting last week, and there was a unanimous decision to have me come to the meeting representing all of our homeowners, questioning the wisdom of a Dollar General store at this particular location. Our major concern is safety. We have many bicyclists in our community who do ride up and down that corridor as well as into the El Dorado area. Walkers, people who walk their dogs, people who do different things that access that corridor, if at least briefly, if nothing else. So safety is a concern, and you had several people tell you already about the accidents that have taken place there. The other thing that I don't think has been mentioned, and I didn't hear the last group, is that when there is a need for fire or EMT services, our services in our community are volunteer. So they are already pretty stressed and spread pretty thin, and I think there's a potential to aggravate that situation with the development of stores such as this in this location. I have heard a couple of people mention that one of the big businesses as far as Santa Fe is concerned is tourism. And I certainly can speak to that from a personal basis. The 285 is the main connection between Oklahoma and Texas. And I think that I would leave it to you to know how many people you have who come to Santa Fe from those states to visit. But my husband and I worked in Oklahoma City for almost 40 years. We're very fortunate to be able to come to Santa Fe to visit once or twice a year for almost 15 years. That laid the groundwork for our decision to move here. And fortunately, we could have moved pretty much everywhere we wanted to. And I can assure you that if there were a McDonald's or a Dollar General on the corner just before we're coming up to I-25 to go into Santa Fe, we would not probably be living here. It makes a difference. Also, I think that the travel practice of people coming here from southeast of here is to stop at Klein's Corners and kind of look around and just sort of see what's there and say, even at Klein's Corners, I'm not gonna buy trinkets here because I'm going to Santa Fe. You want the Santa Fe aesthetic when you come here, and I don't believe this is very good for your front door. Other than the stress on our volunteer services and the safety concerns, you've heard several people mention that the land itself is hilly and that with snow and rain, there are concerns about mud.
Okay, your time is up. Thank you. Next.
My name is Dara Mark. I live in the Old Road Ranch subdivision, also known as the Art Barns. I'm an artist. On Sunday, I took the petition around door to door in my neighborhood. And of the 25 or so households that I visited, there was only one person who did not want to sign that petition. It was overwhelming sentiment against having this store. People are afraid that we'll lose our grocery store, which has done a really very good job of supplying needs for our particular community with a lot of organic produce and that kind of thing. They're very responsive to the community. It's a very different kind of retail than the dollar store. I think there should be a distinction when we talk about retail between a neighborhood responsive retail and a predatory retail. And there have been many, many cases, and I guess this, the lawsuit in the state is probably related to that predatory business model that the dollar store uses. So we're very concerned. We love our local businesses. We want to support them. We don't want to lose the grocery store. We don't want to lose the hardware store, any of the other little stores that we consider part of our neighborhood and our home. And I think there may be a master plan, but the master plan is no good if it cannot take into consideration the feelings of the neighbors. And that's really all I have to say. Oh, and the other thing is, I think there would be a lot more people here if the weather wasn't so bad. We were coming in with a whole bunch of people, and there are some people here from my development, but not in the numbers that we had expected.
Okay, thank you. Next.
My name is Elizabeth McLaren. I live in El Dorado. I'm a retired teacher and I'm an artist. And with all due respect to you, I feel that this process has been flawed. That the impact on the community is not being considered. The signage for the meeting or for the project wasn't really evident. You know, if you're flying past that between the gas station and Amistad, it's 50 miles an hour. I mean, it's fast. And you're not looking at the side, you're watching traffic. There've been a lot of accidents. And I really do take offense to the idea that the Dollar General has a wide range of goods. We have a community at La Tienda and the Agora, and we have a wide range of businesses there that will provide for people who don't want to go into Santa Fe and, you know, drive the 8 miles from where they're living or further. A Dollar General store is not going to add to our community, and I'm concerned that our local businesses will be affected by cheap milk, cheap bread, and other cheap things that are like lost leaders for the store, but then other things are just, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm a snob, but, you know, we've got all the stuff that we need in the community, and that's why people shop there. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Joaquin Amador, and I live in the Alteza subdivision, which is accessed by that first light in the area we're discussing. And I wasn't going to speak tonight, but, well, here I am. And excuse me, I just wrote up some notes very quickly, I just wanted to let you know. We moved here from Chicago 8 years ago. I'm from Española originally, moved to Chicago, lived there, wanted to get away from the overcrowding and everything, and that, you know, El Dorado was ideal with its dark skies and sort of rural feel. The sort of unique feel of the community. We fear that the dollar store, not only would it possibly ruin the night skies out there, you know, we probably see the glow from our house, but it would be essentially the tip of the spear in further development of the area in ways that are not controlled. Somebody told me that the neighbors, another lot next there wants to put a McDonald's. So at some point, once you open the door, where does it actually end? I have 3 boys, you know, right now at that light, which we use every day, we have to be very careful and, you know, when it turns green, look both ways. We've seen accidents there, we see people running that light all the time. How is this actually gonna improve? And if you look at, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but if somebody's heading south on I-25 and they exit on the off-ramp, there's a stop sign there. So if anybody coming to the dollar store, you know, and it increases traffic, they're gonna be backed up on that stop sign. It's not an easy off-ramp. You know, they're gonna have to come to a complete stop. It's hard to access 285 south now. So that would just be an additional thing. And lastly, I sort of got the feeling from the developer's attorney that this is an administrative action. It should not even be discussed. The community has no say at all. But 10 or 30 years have gone by, or many years, and would it be different, you know, would the community not have a say? For example, we were discussing a retail store, let's say, selling, adult sex toys. Would it still be an administrative action? Say, no, it's been decided, it's retail, community should have no say. I disagree. I think the community should have involvement and, you know, try to shape the future of our community and try to retain its unique character.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Yes, hello, my name is Alan Yeager. I live on the old Las Vegas Highway. My parents, I've been living there since 1970. My parents bought the property from Alva Simpson in 1966. So I've been there for 49 years and I've seen it before El Dorado was there, before the I-25 was there. And El Dorado was bought as a development for what I heard 7 or 9 million. What's there now, 5,000 people. I've seen a lot of changes. And I was part of the corridor plan. I was one of the, I don't remember, 7 or 10 people that worked on that plan that was in approximately 2009 when we adopted it. They did the first part of the plan 4 years or so earlier. And so we did give a lot of attention into the details, but you know, we can't always think of everything. And so when I hear that they mentioned they're gonna do Adobe style, that was some of the things but you know, there are, I don't recall now, 3 to 4 lots, 10, 12 acres, including the one that's already developed with La Tienda, that are commercial. So this is not just the first of these that you're gonna be hearing. You're gonna be hearing more because as time goes on, development, I was amazed to hear that there's some 14,000 people a day passing through that corridor. Well, I understand now a little more why all that was going on. So what I wanna say is I only took notes too because this was a shock to me too. I didn't know about this. I personally don't think the Dollar General store is right for the area either. Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to make it fit in. I know the community wants to have what they feel is right, and again, we put in that plan, there's a lot of detail, I don't know how much you all have read the plan and to understand it, but you have to really read and yes, so they were saying they wanna do responsible development and that they're within the administrative rights, which probably is maybe true for the most part, but what I'm questioning is I think you need to look at the details of the plan and look at the details of that, because I'm hearing, I haven't seen the master plan, and I'm an engineer, I've been working 39 years at the lab, I understand codes, that's why I helped on this thing. Well, I'm not sure, it sounds like the master plan changed along the way, I would think that what I would recommend the board does is you look at that master plan and put it up against the corridor plan. And make sure, you know, that it does, because it sounds like it was gonna be something else and now it's changed. Maybe that protection area needs to be an easement. So there may be some catches that don't quite fit into this administrative act that we're talking about, and I would be happy to be a part of that if you guys are calling a meeting to cause I know you don't wanna make a decision tonight, then I would be happy to be a part of that in deciding.
Your time's up, thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, anybody else, is that?
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming, thank you all.
Yeah, you probably ask.
Ask one more time if there's anyone from the public,
They
cause
can
they're,
hear you.
yeah, they can hear you.
There could be people in the conference.
Thank you. Is there anybody out there that wants to come forward and speak that hasn't had a chance? Please come forward now. Getting ready to close the public hearing. Alright, being said, I hereby close the public hearing.
Pardon me, Chair Gonzalez, will we have a chance to
Yes.
speak on this?
Any
There may be some people coming forward. I'm not sure.
They're waving towards us.
There may be 2 or 3 more.
No, he already spoke.
I got you all to look, no. There was one point, entirely regular, if I could have 1 minute, and it does affect this project.
Okay, 1 minute, that's it.
The
Okay, hold on, I gotta open the public hearing again, right?
Yeah, I move that we open the public hearing.
Second, okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
The community doesn't feel that Joe Miller doesn't have the right to develop this property. But this particular location, when I was saying, wow, this is being the face of the community, there's a movement to, if this project can get blocked at that location, not necessarily everywhere, but at that location, the community is ready to raise the funds to buy that property to make it open space.
At the asking price. That's, so, good point, and the last point I wanna make to you that didn't come up at all tonight is that since 2009, the community has had a 50% turn. It averages 5% a year. That means half the community has moved in that time who have never been a part of this discussion, have no idea about it. And while maybe somebody who's really particular does incredible due diligence when they're moving into an area, you move into an area because of a feel, a feel, a vibe of a community. 50% turn, 50% of the people out here had no part of this, and we have raised the petitions over 10% of our total population in the last 2 weeks. So just that awareness, we need another public meeting.
And that offer's been transmitted to Joe by me personally, and he has repeated that as a serious offer that's out there. I personally, if Dollar General was going in that major section, it was gonna be between a bunch of other buildings and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't be talking to you.
I would, but that's
a difference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the extra time, we really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Because we're gonna be collecting. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that being said, we're gonna close the public hearing. Any questions of staff from the commission?
I have one question. There's been.
Okay, wait, do I need to let these guys do their stuff first?
let them talk.
Yeah, okay, let's hold off now, okay, why don't you come forward? Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez, members of the commission, I'll be brief, and I'm gonna say a few words, and Maury Walker's just gonna say a couple of words about the traffic impact analysis since it came up in questions. You know, what we've seen here tonight is kind of as I anticipated, it was an attempt to reopen and relitigate the planning process. And there was specific discussion about, hey, this particular lot and what it is designated for. This is a copy of the amended master plan that was adopted in 2009. Clearly identifies this 2.5 or so acre parcel as being reserved for commercial use. That was a process that was carried out pursuant to the county code. It resulted in adoption of the amended master plan, which was prior to the SLDC coming forward. This was in 2009, but it exists, it is law. It was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. This is the direction and the mandate for use of this property. And your staff, when we came in with the administrative application for administrative approval, again, that was done pursuant to the clear requirements of the SLDC. Staff, in reviewing the application, did its job. The only way that an application for an administrative approval can be denied is if it does not meet a specific section of the county code. That was staff's job to ensure, and we spent several months addressing staff's questions, addressing staff concerns, submitting additional information. It's the process at work. That process is predicated on the plan that the Board of County Commissioners has already adopted. This process has worked, and what you've heard from is a lot of people who disagree with the process, and you have a fundamental choice tonight. You either follow your county code or you don't. We followed the county code. Staff determined that this application met all the requirements of the county code. And because of that, unless there is substantial evidence supporting some way in which the design of this building and this development has not met county code requirements, if there is, let us know. I haven't heard any. I heard a lot of fears and concerns about the traffic impact analysis, for example, and Maury Walker's been doing traffic impact analyses in this area for a long, long time. Staff has been reviewing his analysis. Mr. Kavanaugh looked at it very carefully. Mr. Kavanaugh concluded and staff concluded that this TIA meets all of the county code requirements. We're either a nation and a county of laws or we are not. We had a lot of folks here tonight talking that, hey, they would like to take another crack at it. Let's have some more planning. Let's have some more meetings. Well, that's great, but that's not how this county code is set up. And that's what we are here to do, is follow the county code, and that's what we've done. And in terms of attacking the particular retail use, as I said before, this county does not get in the business. It doesn't say here that it has a list of allowed uses, retail sales and services up to 50,000 square feet. It doesn't say oh, you can have this particular type of retail sales or service or not. There was a discussion of some kind of X-rated or adult stores. Those are regulated by the code, you can't do that. If we walked in with that kind of application, that section of your code would apply. So unless there's some sort of special circumstance like that, this is a retail use. And you don't go beyond the requirements of your code to say, well, we like this one and we don't like that one. That wasn't built into your master plan and that was not built into your code. One other thing I just wanted to point out, there was a article that I think was passed around with some of the stuff that got handed out earlier, and it said, on the first page, promises made to the community and to the county by developer Joe Miller need to be remembered, i.e., and this is underlined on the first page, there will not be a dollar store as part of his development, see attached article. I read the attached article 3 times. There's no mention of particularly uses, including a dollar store. So, just wanted to point that out to you all. And again, in making your decision tonight, please keep in mind that what staff's decision was a ministerial administrative decision, and that applies to this body as well. And a ministerial development proceeding, section 4.3.3 of your code says, ministerial development proceedings involve non-discretionary application of the standards of the SLDC to an application, period. That's what we're here to do tonight. This is not a forum to reopen the planning process. To do so would be violating the county code. Thank you. Mr. Walker, do you wanna say just a few words about your TIA? And we appreciate your consideration.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, happy to answer any questions.
Yes. So in listening to you, you're saying that this committee has no choice but to approve the application.
Chair Gonzalez, Member Resnick, absolutely not. I just read through this county code, it says, ministerial development proceedings involve non-discretionary application of the standards of the SLDC to an application. There are lots of standards set forth in your code. That's what staff did. They reviewed them and they said, and they started out by saying, there were some things that they said, hey, it's not clear, or this may not comply with our code requirements. That was an iterative process to get to the point where we could demonstrate based on evidence, based on our plans and our application, that this application does meet the requirements of the county code. You're free, absolutely. You are reviewing an appeal of that decision. So this body, if you say section 4.3.5 of the code is not met because of this reason based on this evidence, that is a basis to deny or to uphold the appeal and deny the application. But saying we want to go revisit the planning decision, revisit whether a retail use should be allowed on this property as it has been for the last several decades, from my perspective, that is outside the bounds of your review tonight. And I'd be happy if county council had wanted to weigh in on that as well. I mean, I'm the attorney for my applicant. And my job here, I got hired to ensure that this application meets the county code. I was very pleased when we got to the point with staff where they said, yes, it did, we got an approval, this is an approved project as we stand today. So, I hope that addresses your question, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maury?
No.
I do. You swear from the testimony about the I do. Maury Walker, Walker Engineering. Just real quick about the traffic study, I've probably done 100 of them at least, and I know how to do traffic studies. This does meet not only Santa Fe County standards, it meets state highway standards. One of the comments, I mean, we can go into it for a length of how we do traffic studies, but one of the comments was that the traffic counts at 7 to 9 and then from 4 to 6 are inadequate. Well, that's not true. Those are the peak hours. I personally counted those traffic. I went out there myself and looked at it, and you could tell when the traffic goes up and then it comes back down. And it did it every time at those hours. So they were adequately counted, those cars were counted, and just wanted to let you know that. One other thing is that, I don't know if you know this or not, but Joe Miller put in, I think, about $50,000 per traffic light. Those traffic lights were put in because of his development. One of the reasons it was put in was because of his development, and he put money into it. So, you know, we're talking about safety issues. Well, he already put in money to make that place safe. If it wasn't for those traffic lights, that road would be a lot worse. So he has put money into it, and it's because of this development. And one last thing is that, you know, the traffic study was kind of blind as far as what the use is. I mean, as far as the specific use is, I didn't say this is a Dollar General, this has to be a Dollar General built there. I looked at it and said, no, it's just a retail. I looked at, when I do a traffic study, I said, this is retail, this is a pharmacy, this is whatever. And that's how I do a traffic study. So it's not specifically for Dollar General, it's for the master plan of the development. And that's how we do it without any prejudice as far as what the use is.
Maury, when was the most recent traffic study done?
I don't know exactly. I think it was done last year, I think, or this year. I can't remember when
I believe it was the spring of
it was
this year.
spring of this year.
Do you have it there, Nick? Is that?
I didn't bring it with me. I wish I had. I didn't realize it was gonna be a big addition to it.
Frank?
Yeah, I'm sorry, what's the date?
It's 2009, no. So I've counted that thing 4 times, those intersections 4 times, and I've looked at all of them. I've probably
Frank has
counted them more than anybody else has.
Frank has some questions.
Go ahead.
Is part of the study how much traffic will be generated by the business?
Oh, yeah.
And what were you using to, what was the basis?
I use what we call the ITE rates in the Institute of Traffic Engineers rate. And what they do, they count, I mean, they have charts that they count all over the United States, similar projects. So they know similar projects, how much traffic gets developed with the square footage or the number of cars or whatever. And it's standard, and they're actually really conservative as far as I've ever found out, because every time I've counted one, I've never seen it actually get close to what the traffic has been generated.
What was the number of cars that that you used?
The number of cars,
That would generate per day?
I actually, when I did the traffic study, I did it for the whole development. I didn't do it just for that one little parcel. I mean, I did the traffic study for the whole thing, okay? When I did that, when we looked at the whole process, generally, I just finished one up in Cuesta with the same type of development. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 12 or 11 cars in the AM and 30 to 35 cars in the PM.
Those are peak hours.
Peak hours, yeah.
But that was in Cuesta.
Huh?
That was in Cuesta.
Well, it was just the same thing, it was the ITE rates, it's exact same size of building, exact same thing, everything. It's kind of independent of where it is. We use the same numbers, no matter. And it's
That's not
usually-
very confidence inspiring that a building in Quest is gonna generate the same amount of traffic as these 2 main highways, I-25 and 285
You kind of
meeting.
missed the point on that one, actually. It's independent of where it is. I mean, what I'm
But it's
saying.
not independent, that location is
No,
where it's happening.
It's independent of how much traffic. Actually, what they did, they counted cars in the urban areas. The ITE rates are based on urban developments, which is actually higher than what you would have out in El Dorado. So we actually use urban traffic counts to do our study, okay? It's the same, I said Cuesta just because it's the same size of building. It's based on the size of the building, not where it is. It's based on the size of the building. And it's based on counts that they did in urban areas. Okay, so it's much higher than what you would see out there.
Mr. Chair. You did a traffic study dealing with today. I mean, when you did it, the realities of what you counted. It does not, correct me if I'm wrong, it does not take into consideration that there's approximately, and I may be wrong, but I'm sure I'm being conservative, 1,000 undeveloped lots potential in the 285 corridor from I-25 down to Laney, both sides of 285.
Actually, we did, we took it into account in that we look at traffic in 5 years. I think it was a 5-year period. in that we actually took our traffic that we count now and increased it every year by about 3%, and 3% for 5 years. So that we actually increased the actually background traffic. And then on top of that, we added our traffic. So we added traffic on top of traffic to do our study.
Second question, do you analyze the vehicles that are getting off I-25 to 285 south, i.e. the number of trucks that once they get off the interstate, you see them pulled off to the right?
Right.
Also coupled with those vehicles, because I travel that, I live
Right, I
on the
understand.
Eldorado
I
corridor.
understand. I
That
live in that
coming
area
down
too.
to it, coming down 285
Right.
on Old Las Vegas Highway, that you have to be very, very careful
Mm-hmm.
about the merging, because it's a very short run to get to Avenida Amistad.
Right.
And people getting off I-25 have to quickly get over
Mm-hmm.
into the left-hand turn lane as traffic is coming down
Right.
285 from, where Cafe Fina, et cetera, is.
No, I did not study that. That was not requested by either the highway, that's actually a highway department issue more than what we could
It's a
do.
very,
Because, I mean, again, we looked at, all we did was look at the development itself, regardless of whether it's Dollar General or whatever else, and we just see what capacity there is in the roadway system itself.
And Chair Gonzalez, if I may just add on, Commissioner Resnick.
and I'm sure you experienced that yourself.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, you see that.
And so I just wanted to
Absolutely.
point out that this traffic impact analysis was reviewed both by county staff and by NMDOT staff, according to the standards that are set forth in the SLDC and the NMDT, Department of Transportation rules, and they both determined that this project and this impact analysis meets all of the standards.
Yeah,
That's how the process works.
What is the effect, Counselor, what is the effect, if any, because 285 is also a US highway?
I believe it's within NMDOT's jurisdiction.
Yeah, there's jurisdictions, yeah, everything was out there. And it's been a long process of developing all these traffic studies. I mean, every time we come up with a new development, we have to look at these things, and we do. I mean, if there's improvements we have to do, we'll do it. That's the reason why it's.
How long is a typical traffic study these days? How many hours, days, what
What do you mean, as far as what? As far
time to do it?
to do it, it takes probably about 3 weeks. As far as development.
Every day, per week?
Oh, the counts.
Yeah.
Oh, we
Is it
have to
all
do
day long,
counts.
is it?
No, because again, it's peak hours. We look at the maximum amount of traffic on there.
Right.
And it's always 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 to 6. I mean, it's clearly that. And when I've been out there enough times to know that. And, we have to do Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursday, we do the counts. We have to look at a standard day there.
Just a follow-up question. So you both sat here and, listened to all the comments.
Yeah.
What are the effects, I think it was Representative McQueen talked about a DOT study that is being done. What do you make of that?
It's the first time I've heard that. I'm not aware of that one at all. I'm sorry. And sound like, looks like it might be.
Because I know
needed for
Senator
sure.
Worth and Representative McQueen came out to the corridor in response because of the number of fatalities and accidents. In fact, over the summer, I had a situation myself pulling out of Avenida Vista Grande
Right.
on a green light.
Right.
And I'm very cautious. I tell people when you're turning left, better look both ways and be prepared.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that truck sped up and ran the light. And I also tell people don't turn from the right. There's 2 turn lanes, where there's only 1 turn lane presently in Avenida Amistad and Avenida
yeah.
Vista Grande. There are 2 left-hand turn lanes.
Right.
Never turn left on the south side of that turn lane because it's a blind spot. And that's what happened to the former head of the Santa Fe County Democratic Party. She
Yeah,
turned
I remember
right
that, yeah.
and got clobbered by a truck. she was blindsided.
Alright, any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if I could just have a quick word. I believe there was a narrative tonight that staff was not transparent and did not conduct reviews in accordance. You know, as a case manager, I've met with more than a dozen people personally, in person, in office, responded to countless emails, phone calls. I don't know how you can say that the public notice boards were not efficient when it sparked a 1900 page petition with signatures on it. But the reason that the traffic impact analysis was not included as an exhibit in this is that we said that this met all the code requirements. Therefore, we approved it administratively. So if you have questions about the traffic impact analysis, I would gladly like you to go over with them individually. But we did look at that, DOT looked at that. If you look at exhibit 10, you got pages NB 99 through NB of 111. There's correspondence from all the agencies that looked at this and gave their approval on the project. So the fact that, you know, they're trying to question that staff didn't take the time to look at this and review it properly, you know, we did. We went through countless red lines with the applicant. And I just wanted to put that on record. We didn't just approve this, like, it did go through a review.
You did your job.
No, you guys
And
did
we
your
were
job.
very open with the public as far as if they wanted to meet. I met with, like I said, numerous people.
I do have a question for you. One of the individuals said a comment about some conditions of approval that were not met. Did you hear that? Something about that?
Somebody said something
Something
about some
about-
conditions that's done
Yeah.
and met,
Do you know
but
anything
never
about that?
identified it.
Mr. Chair, like I said, if the application did not meet the SLDC, we would not have approved it administratively. There was a lengthy process. If you look from the start of application to approval date, it was almost 4 months. So we definitely went through different rounds, different plan sets, critiques here and there. So it was a very thorough review.
Another thing that came up was the steepness. What can you tell me about the steepness? That seemed to come up a couple times.
So there is a grading and drainage plan on your plan set.
So there's no issue on 30% slopes?
Mr. Chair, there's no steepness, the steepness you're talking about is the hill that's basically that adjoins this lot.
Above it?
But above it or behind it, but the lot is basically
Yeah.
flat.
There's a drainage easement
Yeah,
actually
I
between the steep slopes and the building itself. We kept that open and we kept off the steep slopes. We're not impacting any
So
steep
that
slopes.
property is vacant, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
Well,
Someone showed
mobile home.
a picture of something where the.
Mr. Chair, there's an existing mobile home that will be removed contingent upon the project being approved.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for staff. Going back over the master plan, when was the first master plan approved? What year?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Shepherd, I believe it was the early 90s.
93, I hear.
92 to
And how many times has it been formally changed?
Oh gosh,
I mean, substantively
Mr. Chair.
changed, not just dot the I, cross the T, but I mean.
Mr. Chair, Commission Member Shepherd, it's been amended several times. I'm trying to think back, it may have the original approval may have been rescinded or may have lost its status, so they came in subsequently and requested a new master plan. Then when the US 280, probably in the early 90s.
Okay.
And then when the US 285 corridor ordinance came into effect, they came in to amend their master plan to be consistent with that 285 corridor plan.
About when was that?
Gosh, I don't know, I wanna say maybe 2010, 2000 something, yeah, around that time frame.
Because what I'm trying to find out, several people have said that there is an article that quotes Joe Miller saying that there will not be a dollar store. And we have that one piece of cardboard with some quotes on it in front of our chairman. But I asked at that time, and I'm still looking for the actual article. Unfortunately, our Wi-Fi tends to, it looks like it's down, because I was gonna try to search for it. because there was some traces. But I do not find any place where he said there will not be a dollar store. And I would like to know whether that is fact or fiction, that the owner said he's not gonna, at some point during the development of the master plan, 1993, 2010, whatever, he said, in terms of the intent of the development plan, even though it says the usage list is retail sales, there seems to be this implication from some of the residents that the verbal discussions were retail sales, but retail sales that's consistent with El Dorado and what they need in El Dorado, and not big box, but yet I don't see anything that said that Joe Miller has said that. And I can trace it back to a verifiable quote. And since I can't, then I will assume that it isn't.
Somebody is showing something.
I have read that article completely and there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it.
I saw the article last week.
Do we have that?
Yes, it was I have the same article and I read it 5 times.
And
It does
they
not
didn't want a
say,
dollar store, said Mr. Miller,
show me in this one. Is this the same article?
No, this is the article that we were referring, that's the article.
Okay, show me in my copy. Because I don't have that copy.
I'm actually holding Teresa Seamster's package here, so I don't know,
Because that particular
Is this hers or
paragraph isn't in
ours?
my copy.
Mr. Chair, I can tell that
this is Teresa's
there's a public
here,
seats here, they don't have to stay on.
and
Anybody out there in the public that would like to come in here and sit down with us, there's a few seats up here that are available, you're welcome to come in.
I thought they passed that
let me see if this is the same second page. Rejected his plans in 2001. On the top of the-
See, and this is part of the
Article.
confusion is, it's a quote, you're coming in with a package that has this quote in it, but it's not what
This
was
is not my
distributed.
package.
It was not what was distributed to the planning commission, so, and I have to use this. Because
okay.
this is what was submitted to
Then
us.
in our package, I don't know what to say about that second page, in our package, you have the URL,
Article right here.
the URL for that
I tried
article.
looking this and it didn't come up because our Wi-Fi is.
Oh, your Wi-Fi is
Yeah.
I can show you, I'm on my.
Okay, and it's
Here.
back in the
Edgar
control over
has,
here.
Edgar has it here.
And it is exactly what you have there, but this is from the SantaFeNewMexican.com, okay?
Yeah.
Developer's plans, and this is exactly his quotes and his words down here, okay? So.
It's I would like this to be in a way that's submitted in as the record, because I think it's important to know what what the intent of the developer was. I think it's important to know.
Teresa's package, but
Mr.
it
Chair,
doesn't have it.
can that, if there's only one copy right now of that article, can that be passed so the committee can look at it? And
Yes.
Please do.
and also I'd like to add, is Danny still here?
He left.
Oh, okay.
Vicky's gonna make some copies. Give it to Vicky,
I,
she's gonna make copies.
Mr. Chair, if there's a way to make a copy, I'm a little uncomfortable with an
Passing.
electronic copy being passed around. If you're considering something, we should get it in the record.
She's gonna make copies of it.
Great.
I just wanna state, while I have not attended all of the planning meetings in the 285 corridor, I certainly attended the last one where there was discussion of what Mr. Miller wanted to do with some some apartment rentals and type of facilities that he was looking for, and urgent care type facility, medical. And he was talking about services that were needed by the community. There was not discussion of fast food restaurants and this type of operation. That's my recollection when that was held, I think not this past summer, but the summer before. We had a community meeting was standing room only. And so this is different than what in fact, I think one of the handouts refers to it because I saw the realtor's name and they were conducting the meeting and Joe sat in the back, as I recall, and Danny Martinez was there and it was the overall presentation that it was gonna be more earthy and more organic. And yes, there could be some national businesses, but things that would complement what was going on in the corridor. That's the feeling that I walked away from. That's just a personal observation, my recollection.
Mr. Chair. When I've listened to the timeline, and this has been a long master plan process and an evolution. And I understand completely what you have said, that, hey, this is a done deal, it's on the approved list, we're here just for, administrative purposes. The concept of Dollar General is a relatively new retail technology, if you wanna call it a technology. The way that, and I've been to, I went camping down at the state park by Carrizozo, and I needed some supplies, and there's a Dollar General down there. And it was my first time in Dollar General, and quite honestly, what it reminded me of is if you took a Walmart and said, get a little bit of everything that's in a Walmart and put it in a small building. They have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a little bit of that. But not a lot of choices, but it suited me as a camper, because they had a couple things I needed. But that technology of a ultra small general store that operated like they did is new. And it's new to New Mexico because they're just now starting to get into our Santa Fe area. And so I wonder if at the time when the master plan was developed, some of these newer technologies were even considered. Like when they talked about, oh, it's okay to have retail sales, they might have been thinking about the type of retail sales that existed back when the master plan was developed, in 1993, or maybe when it was revised over the time. But it might not have included, like a smartphone manufacturing center, because that's a great technology, and things like lithium batteries and stuff like that, and the hazardous material of that wasn't included back in the master plan because it wasn't part of our technology catalog when we talked about, oh, well, this is good and this is bad. At the time, nobody talked about the problem of lithium batteries blowing up, or the transportation problem, or the technology of repair centers for different things. And I wonder if things like the small, ultra compact, but the very wide offering, but very narrow depth in terms of what is offered, is something that wasn't considered at the time when they were discussing putting a master plan around with retail sales. And maybe it was more of a traditional retail sales that they were talking about, and something like a Dollar General wasn't considered. Now, I don't know how much that affects it, the whole notion that it's a done deal, everybody approve, go. But I'm hearing the community say, this ain't what we signed up for. This is something that wasn't discussed with the community. And perhaps it's because it wasn't in the radar back when this was part of discussed with the community in the beginning. And as such, perhaps it is time to reopen the discussion around what is appropriate to the community around what does the word retail mean? And I don't know if that's something that we should even consider, but that's what's going through my mind. It's like, geez, maybe the game has changed, but we're dealing with an old list and a new game. And maybe everyone is technically right. I mean, maybe you're technically right that, hey, this is approved, done deal, let's do it. But on the other hand, I'm hearing the community say, hey, wait a minute, the game's changed. And this isn't really what we thought the developer had in mind. And so now I have in front of me the list that says, the quote by Miller. And Joe Miller, I'm assuming that means, they didn't want a dollar store there, said Miller, whose daughter and grandson are now helping him with the project. Well, I still have a question on who is they, because that doesn't say, I don't want a dollar store there. It says, they don't want a dollar store there. So I'm still confused about that, but I'm sorry to ramble, but that's what's going on in my head right now.
Mr. Chair, if I could just, there's actually 2 more pages to the article, so we're handing those out.
That was the problem, is that we didn't have the.
Frank?
What? I share some of Steve's concern. Both the change in the traffic over the years and but the biggest concern really is the Dollar General. And I think that the Board of County Commissioners should have a chance to look at whether they want to do the kind of things that a number of jurisdictions, particularly it was cited, I think, Tulsa, that article in the Times in October about Tulsa has enacted a specific ordinance to deal with the fact that this is a very different kind of a retail situation that is pernicious to other retail businesses in the area. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I've not done any studies on it, but I'm aware of the fact that there has been enormous concern about this, and what I'm not comfortable approving it. I think it needs to go to the Board of County Commissioners. And I think that when the time is ripe, I would make a motion to get it there.
Anybody else?
Chair.
JJ.
You know, I've listened to a lot of people talk here tonight, and I don't think anybody has said that this lot should not be a commercial lot. I think there's commercial uses on that. I talked to Mr. Katnack and I asked him directly, are you opposed to commercial development on that lot? And he said, no, that's been approved. You know, Mr. McQueen mentioned about the traffic, that's been a problem. There hasn't been enough studies done. I'm very familiar with one project that was denied because there was a real traffic problem. And everybody said, oh, the traffic is fine. But to this day, there are accidents there on a weekly basis. So one thing is traffic access. Now, the traffic, Mr. Maury Walker says, well, everything is fine. New Mexico DOT says everything is fine. The county says everything is fine. But there still exist these underlying problems. And the thing is that, I see that there's a lot of, the need for this type of store goods that they sell is very readily available in El Dorado. And El Dorado has a couple of shopping centers that cater to the needs of the residents. And also, I think Mr. Miller, has many lots in that area, and I think he has options. There's other options. It's not just tied to this one particular developer. The developer says, I want this store there. Mr. Carnes says, you have to approve this particular plan, but I think there's other options. If this particular application or the appeal is approved or something, the appeal, not the applicant there. And also in this area, it seems that this type of store in this area is probably not the ideal place to have it. There's Dollar Generals in Santa Fe. I recently traveled in Pecos and there's a Family Dollar at one corner, and half a block away, there's a Dollar General. I mean, it seems that there's a commercial lot available, and it seems that Family Dollar always competes with Dollar General. That happens on Airport Road, and there's two stores, within half a mile of each other. And I think that this is just not the location for this type of store. This type of store in that area, I feel it's out of place. And those are just my comments.
Basically, I pretty much concur with Frank and Fred here. I did write down a statement. I just want to say, like, this commission grants or denies variance requests monthly to the county code, usually based on supporting documentation such as terrain, grades of driveways, heights of structures, etc. Now we have gotten a request to recommend retraction of an approved development permit. I have not seen any technical or other information to not allow this permit. A lot of what I'm reading and hearing is the project does not belong, etc. Part of our job as commissioners is to identify flaws in the county code as well. These type of concerns that have been brought forward tonight would require changes to the code. Of course, these decisions need to be left to the elected officials. And in addition, I would like to say individuals who create or purchase these types of pre-zone projects have rights as well. They have every right to build something on their property. Some protesters mentioned the store is not needed and will put other stores out of business. Maybe they are right, but I also think that every individual has a right to attempt to start a business, and if it fails, it fails. If it succeeds, it succeeds. Those are just my comments. What I just over the meeting today. Anybody else? Okay, being
Mr. Chair, if I may just point out procedurally, an option before you entertain motions on this is, I believe, the representative for Mr. Miller spoke in his presentation that Mr. Miller was still would still entertain offers to buy the property, and you heard some of the persons that spoke in opposition state on the record that they had communicated an offer to purchase the lot in question, which if that deal went through would potentially take care of a thorny issue for this body. So one option you have procedurally is always to continue a matter until a future meeting, continue the hearing. And given that you've had representations from at least representatives of two of the parties that they are interested in doing a deal, that's a possibility. I don't know if that's been considered.
I think that's a good point. Being that said, do we, what's the pleasure of the commission?
Well, is there?
Can I say something?
No, we have, the public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Shepherd.
I'm of the opinion, as Commissioner Katz referred to as well, to approve the appeal as a mechanism to get it into the county commissioner. Because I'm going to assume that because of the investment and the finances involved, that if we agree with the appeal, then it's going to get appealed to the next level up, which will take it to the county commissioner's thing. Because I'm uncomfortable with just blindly going through with this, it's in the master plan, we just gotta fall in line with it. I respect the fact that there's a lot of energy in the community that needs to be addressed somehow. And the best way to address it, in my opinion, would be to bring it up to the county commissioners.
I agree, I think it's a call for the elected officials.
And with that, then I would make a motion that we approve the appeal. Is that the proper words? Approve the appeal without conditions.
Mr. Chair, members, I believe you're sitting, and you're basically sitting in the shoes of the administrator. This is in effect a de novo appeal, so you're making the decision on the application. You would, if that's the intent of the motion, it would be, I suggest, approve the appeal and deny the application.
Right. Yeah. What he said.
I will second that motion.
Yeah. Okay, All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you all.
Really great consideration.
Okay, let's
Good job.
continue here.
Mr. Gonzalez, just attend the.
My wife is.
Oh, you both are?
Yeah, we're gonna close up.
We're done.
Okay,
See you guys.
petitions from the floor,
Thanks for
nothing? Okay, communications from the commission members, anybody have anything? No?
The only thing I might mention is, next month's meeting is, it's the holiday season, and I will not be in the state, during that week of our next planning commission meeting. I don't know if
there,
that,
Mr. Chair, and there is a possibility, I do not know, I have an uncle who's turning 100
Wow.
and in Chicago. And they're trying to do a surprise party and we're trying to figure out weather conditions.
So
Before
that
we
can
book
factor in
flights.
on-
Ready to answer your question?
Communications from the attorney,
So you may or may not have it.
I'm none, Mr. Chair.
thank you. Matters from the land use staff,
Mr. Chair, just wanna bring to your attention that there's three commission member terms which are expiring now in January. And that would be yourself, Mr. Chair, Commission Member Shepherd and Commission Member Martin, which I will speak to her separately. But if you would like to continue to serve on the commission, I will need your letter of interest and resume by 5 p.m. on November 26th.
Okay.
Which is next Tuesday, and you're welcome to email it to me if that's easiest.
okay, and also on that note, I also wanna thank staff for your good work.
I would
That was-
like to add that, and I thought they did a great job
job,
in
yes.
this
These are
difficult
controversial hearings,
situation. Very nicely done.
Thank you very much.
Don't take it personal.
No, never do.
No, you guys do your job, and this committee, has the option to make a recommendation. And this is not the only time we've made a recommendation that went against maybe what staff recommended, so.
Okay, next planning commission regular meeting, November 21st, 2019. Oh. I'm tired.
December.
December, was it 17th?
19.
2019. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
A second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Safe
Thank
out
you.
there, guys.